All right, we get going.
Oh.
So I'd like to call to order the Parks, Property and Streets Committee meeting for Monday, March 2nd, 2026 at 1 p.m. So roll call, Housen here.
Last one's here.
Go here.
Well, here. Art's here.
Awesome. All right, next up is to approve the agenda for today's meeting. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion. Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Item 3, to approve the minutes from the February 2nd, 2026 regular meeting of the committee. Do I have any edits or a motion to approve?
I have a couple of questions. On page 3, under Bluff Side Area Road Design Drive, or no, sorry, under Knowles Nelson Stewardship Program Encumbrance Resolution Options. It states in here that the committee discussed whether the entire parcel needed to be addressed or just a portion, 3 parking stalls. Whoever said that it was only 3 parking stalls?
We had a discussion, as I recall, we had a discussion at the meeting. And this describes that discussion, which was, is it just the parking stalls or is it the entire parking? That's what
I think
recall.
it's intended to say the lots.
Yeah.
For it, so the 3 lots that are associated with the parcel. So maybe stalls isn't the best word.
So would it be more accurate just to strike the area in parentheses, because I do recall having that discussion.
Sarah, do you have something to say?
I recall the discussion being 3 parking stalls.
So do I.
Okay. And so we have directed staff to contact the DNR to clarify. Have we received an answer?
So as part of this, this one's not listed as an agenda item. So
Because it's going to parks. I mean, it's going to the board, am I right?
no, so essentially they clarified information about it and that we got back information that the appraisal that was requested previously was not what was needed. So the appraisal, or at least a 1-sheet summary, needs to be revised, which we're currently working with.
Okay.
With the appraisers on that.
So that'll be at our next month's meeting?
Yep.
Okay. And was there on page 5, Village Hall rental agreement for Shane Kruger? Because he was not present at the meeting. Was there follow-up with Mr. Kruger?
Yes, so we sent him over an email summarizing the actions and attempted to make a phone call as well. And I believe Sarah, that there was some contact following on a separate note, or at least with Julie regarding the liquor license. I did not personally hear back.
I did not personally hear that.
Okay. Okay. That's just the clarifications and follow. Thank you.
Motion to approve,
So move.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, next up is comments, correspondence, and concerns from the public. So I will ask the public to please limit your comments to, we'll start with the folks that are here in person, then we'll go online. To limit your comments to 3 minutes. We're making every attempt to try to keep this meeting, as tight and as informative as possible, which would mean that's code for shorten it up. So, and nonetheless, if we could hear from, just raise your hand, I'll call you in whatever order I can. Ellie.
Hi, Elsa Verbuber, with the Sister Bay Advancement Association. 2, I guess, quick comments. First comment, Sister Bay was recently nominated for 10 best small towns in the Midwest. So that's an open voting, so we'll be sending out some links, or check out social media for links to vote, so help us get into that top 10 for that. Second, we have recently realized that technically our bus agreement has kind of gone into the kind of automatic renewal into that, the shuttle agreement between the SBA and the village. So our SBA board has a couple of or kind of clarification questions that they would like to kind of work through, so if we could either get a working session or, get on the next agenda, we would be appreciative of that. That's all I have.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, Mary.
I'm Mary Smythe, and, I read in the, handout that you gave us that you're going to be working on sustainability design. And I would like to request that at the very least you be, LEED silver, LEED being leadership in energy and environmental design. The best is LEED platinum. And Door County has more LEED platinum buildings in Wisconsin than any other county, owing to the work of Verge Temmie, who is a resident architect, but no longer fully active, but might be willing to be a consultant. And I just urge you emphatically to look at LEED and to look at LEED platinum.
Thank you. One thing I forgot to mention this at the beginning, if you haven't, as you leave or want to get up and do it now, please sign in, just so that we.
And I guess I should add that maybe Green Tier Legacy Community Committee
Yeah, to do that.
should talk about this and
Encourage
maybe
that, yeah.
recommend it up to the board
Yeah, you're right.
and to the committee.
All right, anyone else? Comments? Okay, we got anybody, is there any hands up online?
I don't see.
None.
Hello, it's Patrice.
Patrice, sure.
Hi, Patrice Champo. Real quick, I just wanted to express my feelings about the old administration building. I hope that we do not tear it down. It is a unique piece of the historical triangle in Sister Bay. My hope is that that property can be sold and it can be saved, and the money raised from the property be going to the village hall for its refurbishing and updates that it does need so desperately. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dick, did you?
Just a clarification, Madam Chairman, are you, allowing for input to your public information meeting on the administration building at a later
Yes, sir.
time? Or are you
Yeah.
asking for that now?
No, I'm not asking for it now, we'll ask
Thank
for
you.
it later, and just so everybody knows, we have a couple of items we're gonna go through before that. That'll be brief, and then we'll, if you haven't seen the agenda, and then we'll get into the public information, portion of the meeting regarding the new, village administration building. Okay, do we have any other comments? Okay, so we'll move forward. Discussion and action items 5A, Friends of the Ice Rink. We have an update from Friends of the Ice Rink, Miles Danhausen is with us. Hi, Miles.
Calling on me?
I'm calling on you, Miles.
I'm Miles Danhoven Jr., president of the Friends of the Sister Bay Ice Rink. I won't go through this whole thing because you guys have bigger items on your agenda, but I just wanted to thank you for the chance to give you an update. We are sitting at now just about $2 million in pledges, cash contributions, and in-kind donations for the new ice rink.
Good for
Putting
you.
us at,
Nice job.
there's about $3 for every $1 that the village is contributing, and that'll, when we're all said and done, it'll be at $5 for every one, which I think is pretty unprecedented.
Pretty
In
great.
terms of, public buildings and projects in Door County. I think the crest might be the only thing similar to that. Give credit to Andrew, Eiding at the ice rink this winter. He worked his butt off to try and keep that open as much as possible. I think he got 4 or 5 weeks total out of it. Ben helped him a lot there, and a couple of the other staff. But by February 13th, we got one warm day, it melted, it was gone, and that was pretty much the last day of the rink. But if these same conditions for this winter are the case next year with this new system, we'd have ice from mid-November, and we still have ice right now. And looking at our extended forecast, we could still have ice for a couple more weeks into Gibraltar spring break. So that's the kind of change we're looking at once we get this project done. Been talking to Ben a couple of times with the new village administrator. It's been really helpful so far, so I thank you for that. And we have a meeting on Wednesday with Parks, Ben, and the utilities director to look at that property and start working on what that construction will look like and make sure we're accommodating all the different uses out there. when that begins. And we have RFPs out to the people who specifically build the ice rink portion of this, the coils, the refrigeration and surface. We have those, we should be back next week. And once we get those, we should be able to come back to this committee in April and have a more formal plan and timeline for how things would shape up out there. So
Right.
if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but they didn't wanna go line by line with it.
Yeah.
I guess just my one quick question, Miles. So you're going out for the RFPs and does that procurement process, is that a private process because the Friends of the Ice Rink are managing it, or does the village play a role in that, or partners?
We go through that because it's all, we have the lease and the operating agreement for that property, so we're doing it through the Friends of the Sister Bay Ice Rink. But we're doing it just like, in many ways similar to the village would, just to get the best possible price and transparency on anything we do out there.
Thank you.
And just to reiterate your question as well, we did work with our auditors on that, just to confirm the question, and we also worked with the Friends of the Ice Rink to review the RFP to confirm alignment with what it would be for best practices for competitive procurement.
What do you think the biggest risks are at this point, Miles?
The biggest risk to the project would be, whether when they come back, can the ice rink builders get us into their timeline for this summer? The indications are from most of them that yes, we could fit into their construction timeline and they could fit that project in. But that would be the biggest risk, is maybe they come back and say, actually, we couldn't. But as far as the fundraising, we're pretty confident we're gonna get to the numbers we need to do the surfaces for the rink. And then we also have, I should note, and it's in the report, but we do have a grant writer working on some grant options for us that are fairly promising to help supplement our fundraising efforts. And we're waiting to hear back first from a few potentially large donors. So, and I should note that I know there was some concern about this being, Sister Bay putting the money forward for this, but what's been really gratifying in meeting with donors is we have donors from Sturgeon Bay, we have donors from Liberty Grove, from Bailey's Harbor, from Egg Harbor, folks from Illinois, folks from Naperville, folks who live in Florida, who just see the value in this project, love Door County, love Sister Bay, and are willing to put their own dollars into this project. And that's just been really great to see. I think I've probably met or talked to 30 to 40 different people, and only one person has not donated of those 30 to 40, and that was only because that particular person has donated to so many other things up here, they're kind of tapped out. But otherwise, people have been really supportive of the project.
So Miles, today's March 1st, and you said you thought you'd have the bids out by March 6th, so you're on track for that, right?
Yep, we expect to have bids back March 6th. Fingers crossed. Hopefully they can all fit it into their schedule and give us a good competitive bid.
Okay, and it should be noted that John Fitzgerald and Hockers are donating their services for demo.
Yes, they've been incredibly helpful just in the planning stages and have donated their services to help us demolish the existing rink as well. And I should note in there, for anyone concerned, we have been meeting with the Highlander family throughout. I actually met with Cam out there the other day, and Cam Highlander, who is Teresa K. Highlander's brother, he just expressed how moved he was at his mother and his brother that the village has invested in that facility and that so many people have stepped forward to help support it in the future. So it means a lot to them.
Yeah. Well, kudos to you and your team. Did a great job. Any other committee members have questions?
So for that 1.3 million, does that include, are you including the Hockers and the other
That's
companies
in
as an
addition to
in-kind?
that.
Is that okay?
All right, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Great job, Miles.
Okay, 5B, Peninsula Pacers Mill Road closure request again this year for the Peninsula Century Fall Challenge Bike Ride.
Yeah, so we do have Ben here from the Peninsula Pacers, but he is present to answer any questions about this as well. But essentially what's being requested is for a road detour / closure on a portion of Mill Road for the date of September 19th. As part of the staff report, I did outline what their intention was for the full event for the Peninsula Century Fall Challenge, which is a biking event. Essentially, they're looking to have tent set up on Thursday, facility rental on Friday and Saturday, The tents would be in place on Sunday and that they would be removed on Monday. And essentially, as part of this event, to facilitate the different users, they wanted to close the road on the specific portions that are outlined, included in their application. Just wanted to make a note here that last year they did come forward as well and made a very similar request. I believe it was almost exactly the same site plan for the closure. And that the Parks Committee at that time did move to approve that request. So with that, the different alternatives here would be to review the application and to consider approving the request. If there is any specific questions regarding safety or potential alternate plans, that could also be discussed and included as part of the request. The request could theoretically be rejected, or if you need any additional information, this could come back as well.
And what are the 2 dates again?
So this would be for the event, it would be Friday, September 18th, 2026, and then for Saturday, September 19th. But the actual date in and of itself is the Friday or the Saturday event. So it'd be the 19th.
So Ben, it's the same plan as last year in
Yeah,
terms
it's the
of.
same as last year.
Yeah, okay, do I have a motion to approve?
So one thing I want to ask, and I see you have in there, you said it's approximately 800 riders. Some of these events can be the victims of the success and they get too big.
Mhm.
I'm not speaking of any particular event,
Yeah.
just there are some out there that do that. I guess I would say not for, as you come back year over year, just keep in mind, there is a limit to how big you can get with this event. And it can be so big to be overly disruptive.
Understood, yeah, we're capped at 1,000 at the moment. So that's the hypothetical largest number we could get to.
Yeah, I had some assurance from years back that it was, you can go no more than 1,000. I just wanted to say that in the public
Yeah.
forum,
So
so.
that's still in place.
Motion to approve,
So moved. Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Thank you.
sure.
Then Ben will be in touch.
Okay, next up is 5C, and that's the cold storage cost estimates. Eric, you wanna take this?
Yeah, so I've been working with TK Builders and Design. Terry was gracious enough to come and do a presentation for the committee today. He brought along samples and base estimates, and he can answer any questions that you may have. Terry?
Thank you. Just a quick one, and I'm not sure if this is to you, Eric, or back to our committee. Was this originally budgeted with the cost of the parks building?
For the new building, correct.
So the budget that we're working on is part of the originally approved budget.
I believe so, yes.
Thank you.
I thought
Yes and no, Mike.
Stop it.
There was only, because we had to spend about roughly $250,000 on the new line that came out of the parks maintenance budget. And so that only left about $36,000 of what was budgeted left. So that can go towards rehabbing cold storage. But that's all the money that is left, and so we will have to find the money elsewhere to do this project.
My name is Terry Apple. I own TK Design. I met with Eric. We went over the building, showed him what he wanted. The potential carport on the back that was poured and his idea of a lean-to didn't quite work out with the height of the van. So I did some quick drawings and I put together 2 estimates. One, he requested existing materials, just T111. Obviously is in shambles out there. Not a long-term reliable product. And I also put together a price for smart siding. We have the building and long-term maintenance free. So I have copies of the estimate I put together. Shall I pass them on?
Sure.
Yes. Thank you.
There's some brief, small pictures in the back of the existing and the new proposed.
Thank you.
Both, one of them. This is both estimates, the T11. Existing project is the first estimate. I'll go through them briefly and I'll take a lot of time here and, if you have any questions, when I'm done, I'll answer questions. The carport that he requested on the back will basically be a lean-to facing away. With the height of the eaves on the building at only 13 feet. When we measured the van, for me to get enough pitch on a lean-to, I can't get the van under the roof. So the drawing is further back, kind of a generic drawing. It would extend the roof line as the building is now, create a roof. I did not take that real far as engineering allowance. Then maybe a cost plus with allowance to finish the project. Based on engineering, design and engineering, and then state approval. There's a lot of variables that come into effect with the an open roof like that, as far as updraft and stuff, so started guessing and trying to put together a number until I get engineering done. So it's an allowance.
Excuse me, Terry, so this is what we were
Yes.
talking about,
Kind of a generic drawing. I couldn't get my program to do it without floor in it,
so
but
it's kind of an open air.
it's open to 3 sides. It's a roof over, similar to what a lean-to would be.
Hey, Eric, can you remind me why we need that?
Our original plan was to have a place for the shuttle bus to get out of the sun throughout all seasons.
We'll
That's
also
why
get
the
out of-
original, that's why we extended cold storage's concrete pad back there.
Right now, there's a slab board 16 feet wide, the width of the building,
Yep.
16 by 60.
There's no place-
And the building is already occupied or it's so full that we can't put it inside the building?
Well, that was the original plan. That's why that pad was extended.
No, he means inside of the building the way it stands right now.
The way the
Not,
building,
not the cold storage. The-
I am
the-
asking the cold storage.
Cold storage building.
not the cold storage.
Yeah, why can't we just put it?
We don't have it fully moved in yet. Obviously, yeah, anything is possible. But you know, as far as configurations, we still don't have everything configured and moved in yet from the farm. So to give you a clear cut answer on that, I'm not at that point yet.
And then I guess my next question would be, if we empty out the farm, will it fit in that barn?
No, it's not cow stalls. It won't fit in there.
Okay,
Right now, it's currently at the old utilities building. Out of the weather in there.
I don't think we ever had conversations at the time of putting it inside cold storage. The plan was to have the pad and.
You had to have a separate, someplace for it, so it
yeah,
doesn't sit out.
I guess
in
the issue is we thought this was
elements.
gonna be within the building of the existing budget, and now we're 217 to 271 with only 36,000 available. A lot more money. And we don't have this in the budget this year, correct?
Correct.
We're only in March.
But we have other options, but let's keep on. And the carport, by the way, you said is kind of an estimate, so the.
Yeah, it's the last item on the
That's
list.
usually.
Well, that's
code
not
for-
in the number, so that carport is the next item?
It's in the number. It's the-
On both contracts, it's a cost plus, or it's an allowance on the
Okay.
bottom, and then cost plus that's based on engineering.
So usually that's code for, it could be 20% more,
It could be.
so that's 50 grand.
If
Okay,
state and engineering makes me do steel columns.
no, I
that's
got you.
heavy.
just sort of general, sure, okay.
I won't go line for line, but
Sure.
basically on the siding, the T11 that's on there. I looked at somewhat reason of failure is the building is built with girts, which is horizontal framing, and then the panels are put on vertical. So the lap of each panel warps away from each other, so it looks real rough and real jagged, leaks. You can see through it in a lot of spots. Not a big fan of the T111, but to do the new estimate, to replace as is, we would add vertical supports at every seam of the sheeting. So sheeting would be put on in 4x8 sheets. Strengthened on the seams. Would be pre-finished. I would take it to a stainer, paint it first, have it painted both sides, then apply it and touch up nail holes. It would look basically the way it is. New choice of color. Wouldn't be any design changes. It would all have the 8-inch grooves on it, just as it is now. Updated to new. We would do a AZEK board against the concrete, prevent any wicking of moisture. We trim out the doors, we do cedar, all stay in the same color. Kind of a basic redo of what we have. Supporting all the seams. Second item on is a roofing. It's a 30-year dimensional shingle, you remove it, remove what you have, apply synthetic felt, reshingle. Replace the color, dimensional shingle.
And Terry, the evaluation right now is that the roof is in bad enough shape that it needs complete replacement.
It's really bad. Pearl severely, yes.
Yeah.
Not 100% sure that there's a one layer on it, they go up there, but I assume there's one layer on it, that's what it's bid for, to remove and replace. And as I spoke earlier, the carport. I put together what I thought would be wood structure frame. It's like 8x8s on the corners, microlab headers and trusses with a sheeted gable and a sheeted row. That's an allowance that would give me to that point based on engineering and drafting, state approval. They could tell me updraft's too great, I need steel columns, or there's substantial things that could change on that.
Okay.
The second bid is for basically the same process with smart siding. Smart siding, I sampled it here. Smart siding has a 30-year collar, 50-year on the product. It's a maintenance-free product. It's kind of the way of the future for anything you want to look like wood. The only difference between this and the last bid is I removed the old sheeting from the building. Before I smart side, I would sheet the building with OSB, 7/16 OSB, Tyvek, and then smart siding. Support the smart siding, don't have to support all the seams, and moisture would get trapped between the Tyvek. It would be the way it's supposed to be. Sheeting a building with siding is kind of a cheaper way out. That's part of the reason we failed.
And the smart side material, is that considered a wood composite? Is it?
It's OSB on the back. It's been around about 18 years.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of village codes that require natural materials or specific things, and I think
Yeah,
that would
that-
fall within that, right?
Once I see it, I can tell you.
Okay.
I know in my I recently moved up here, Hibbers Creek over in Bailey's Harbor, PX on here. And they wouldn't let me use it. It's not a natural product. It has to be, it's not a natural wood, it's a man-made product, so it didn't fit into the bylaws of the subdivision.
Sure.
Yes, Terry,
It would.
yes,
Okay. So Denise, this would pass.
plan commission, yes.
With the smart siding, we'd have an option of doing a color scheme if you chose. That's why I brought up colors. The
Right.
building that's currently there now has a two-tone gray look to it. To do something similar with a dark and light. Reason being, I can only get it up to 10 feet in length. Sidewalls are 13. Maybe we could do an 8-foot one color and 5 feet another color. Do some character to make matches there. Everything that's exposed, the starter board, all the door jams, window jams, and casing would all be out of the smart siding product. There would be no natural wood, no finishing in the future. The roofing is exactly the same, the carport is exactly the same as the other bid. There's less labor with the staining. The smart siding, the product is more. And a little bit more to put the OSB on, but OSB is relatively cheap, so. Both products require touch up when we're done, all nail holes, anything that's exposed will be painted over and stained over.
What about maintenance?
Smart siding would be a 30 years on the color, 50 on the product. You should never have to,
You just pressure wash it or something? Right?
just like a house, should be beautiful
What
forever.
about the T1? What do you do with that?
T111.
Cedar?
The first application, you'd probably get 5 to 6 years out of it, because I do it on offsite controlled environment.
Okay,
If you know the product at all, I'm sorry, I didn't bring any products, but T11, it's a rough sawn cedar panel. So to restain it or stain it in place, you don't get the absorption or can't put as much product on vertically. So after the first T11, they say should be finished every 3 to 5 years. So it's a pretty high maintenance product. It's cedar wood, it's cedar, exterior glued cedar plywood, so. It will
Okay.
require maintenance at least every 5 years will be stained.
Okay, and clearly there's no guarantee, okay.
And I guess if you don't do it every 3 to 5 years, you end up with the current situation, because that's what's on the building now.
Is that what's on the building now?
Yes, it
Okay.
is. Yes, it is.
Okay,
One thing we did not bid or talk about was soffits. The soffits are in pretty good shape. The soffits are kind of I'm not sure if they're brown or muddy brown, bronze or muddy brown. If we chose to go with the T11 and you stained it a wood color, fine, it wouldn't matter, pick a brown. We go with one of the grays to make it look more like the other building, you still have a brown soffit. That's a huge concern.
That's a problem.
So these two bits don't have aluminum soffit in it?
No. It's only on the new part, only on the carport. The initial or the original siding right now runs up to the soffit, it doesn't go under, so I did not bid soffits.
what soffit, what material of the soffits we have now?
The soffits that are on the building now are aluminum.
Oh, okay,
Yep, they're brown aluminum.
all right. So that would need to be added, right?
If you wanted to, if the building wouldn't be T11, a brown color, I would say, yeah, if you wanted the gray, it would probably be. You spent this kind of money to make it a maintenance-free building for 30 years, you'd probably want to upgrade the color of the soffits.
Okay,
And spray them, they're in good shape.
If we're tearing the roof off, we could probably look at painting them. Rather than tear them off.
okay.
Is the building structurally safe enough for you to re-roof it without doing siding?
Yeah, a building like that now, probably wouldn't pass a tall wall or wind wall permit. Because the siding is the structure of the building, horizontal bracing so as we tear the siding off, we would tear off sections and start sheeting. We tear off a whole side, we're gonna get a lot of possible sway for the building, so. Yeah, there's a lot of loose edges, I mean, I would feel confident to go on the roof as is, but. Definitely in so shape.
Okay.
Any other questions to the language, to the bid itself?
So the profit and overhead, that 10% is no matter, for instance, if we weren't to do a carport. Then we just take 10% on whatever the siding and roofing is, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thoughts, anybody?
What happens if we just do the roof this year, and then we deferred that until we get it properly budgeted for the next year? I mean, what's the downside to that? I mean, it's not very pretty looking. There's a big building that kind of obfuscates the view of it, so we don't have public seeing it.
For our discussion, I would say the only catch would be if you wanted to paint the soffit. I guess you could. I would say you probably want to paint the soffit and do the roof at the same time. Just because you're gonna have edging off, wedging, a little overspray out on the siding, you don't care, but you don't want to paint it after the roof stop. Be a lot of extra carving.
What's the soffit diameter? How wide is it? 3 feet?
No, it's 4 foot on the gables, it's probably between 1 foot and 18 inches on the eaves.
So what's your rough estimate of what it would cost to put new aluminum soffit on there? Not a lot.
The product would be more than the labor, I think. Aluminum's pretty expensive.
Yeah,
I would be guessing. I can.
all right, that's all right, don't do it then.
I think your point, Nate, is the roof kind of fits within the budget that we have available. And the rest might make sense for a future addition.
Well, I think the other thing is, if it needs a roof, if you don't do the roof, then you're gonna have,
Your building keeps having a problem.
yeah, we're gonna have more problems and it's gonna keep ballooning in cost, because it's going to, the building isn't stabilized. Yeah, there could be some changes and material costs over that year to year, but I guess what I was getting at is the building's not gonna fall apart if we don't re-side it this year. It's not gonna exactly fall apart if we don't re-roof it, but bad things
Will
are
continue to
more and
happen.
more likely to happen every year that goes on. Maybe we get lucky and we have, just a perfect weather that doesn't negatively impact that roof, but maybe it doesn't.
So if we did the roof first, then our exposure, our risk is that whatever materials we use for the siding could go up just from a material standpoint, 5 or 10%, just because it is. Okay. Okay.
So if I might just interject here as part of the discussion, so ultimately, we're talking with one vendor here as part of the state public works procurement requirements to anything that would be over $25,000 would need to follow the specific bidding process for it. So in terms of the action, it's the discussion right now with whether or not to proceed forward, whether or not it's in part or in whole, and then to issue the competitive procurement process.
So you have to issue an RFP.
In some ways, I mean, that's one process. It can also be, depending on the threshold and what's in our financial policies, we can also solicit through different bidders as well. But it would need to be somewhat of an apples to apples of what we're looking for. So if we're searching for the whole project, we would be, talking about that in one solicitation, or if we're just doing a part, if, we want to talk with different vendors on that.
Yeah. Okay,
So that would pertain to the roof also, because that exceeds 25. Correct.
Mhm.
yeah, right, it's over 25 grand. Okay. Denise, do you have a point of view
I do.
of that? Okay,
I was just trying to find, the capital improvement plan that we adopted in the fall.
Yep.
I can't seem to find it on Village's website. There's the 2025 through 29 on there. But not the most current one, so I think we need to double check and get that on there, so, when we need to reference it, we can. There was, a lot of, moving around, different items in the capital improvement plan at finance, over the next 5 years. And, I believed we dropped our CIP this year to somewhere in the 800,000. And I wanted to see what it was, for 27. And I think it was much higher than that as we had pushed things out. So I don't, with all my experience as being finance chair, I don't know that we need to wait to do this. Because first of all, it means that, you will have to move a whole bunch of other stuff out farther, that we have already placed in there, that we talked about last fall. But most importantly, the village, has been saving money, and we are sitting on, $2 million. That is undesignated. And so I think that we could tap into that money to get this project done, because we can do it this year, or we can wait to put it in the CIP and still use undesignated balance funds to offset the CIP if we choose to put this in for 27. It's a horse apiece. And with the condition that the building is in, I think it just kind of makes sense to get it done in, one fell swoop. Unless somebody can tell me differently about the money.
Is that the $2 million budget is after the audit of our reserves was done? Because that's the first I've heard that we have $2 million. When we asked that question at finance, we ended up having Baird go back, working with Vlad to audit our reserves, because there was a concern until recently, which you brought up at the last finance meeting, that we think we have it accurate now, that we know what's actually a cash reserve versus what's been allocated to the project. That's all clean now.
Well, Baird has not come back to the finance committee and presented, that to us yet. I believe, and Vlad is not here today, my understanding is the money is there. They can account for the money. It was in which pots did it go into?
I guess where I am is, one, I'd like to see the results of that auditor review before we start spending those dollars. And the second issue is, we have this is the second significant request. The first one came to Finance Committee last week. We have a budget set for 26. If we want to manage effectively the tax levy and manage to a budget, I'm not in favor of spending outside of that budget, either for capital projects or for expense projects, until we have a better handle on what kind of spending we're gonna have for the balance of the year. I also think we need to get competitive bids here. And because there is a differentiation between roofs and siding, we might even want to break these bids up in the future. So roofers can bid on the roof and siders can bid on the siding. And if there's somebody that wants to bid on both, great. But I think that that's something we should consider. And I think we also have to ask ourselves whether or not we really need to add the extra space after we put in a very large parks building. And now we are gonna redo a building that's currently empty. And I'm not sure we need all of this space. I'd like us to really examine whether or not we need the extra space before we spend the $40,000 on the lean-to.
Mike, the building's not empty,
Which building's not
the
empty?
cold storage.
Okay, so we moved stuff into the cold storage now.
We currently have stuff in cold storage.
Okay.
We're not fully moved in yet, but there is stuff in there. We still have stuff remaining out at the barn on our request, and it needs to go into cold storage. But all the stuff from the maintenance building has been moved into that facility.
My understanding of them designated funds is similar to yours, Denise, that they had, it was a matter of allocations, really where it got murky and they could not nail that down. I think that while we may take it from undesignated funds in the future, there's a difference between going off the budget at the beginning of the year and purposely planning for it and saying, okay, we're gonna use undesignated funds moving forward. That's where I'm at. That's what I think. I hear what you said. I understood what you said, but I just don't think we should. I think we need to be purposeful and use some force. I mean, like, we knew this was coming. We didn't know all the details on here, but let's make a plan ahead of time, not react. And I think that we do need to do the roof because we don't want to lose our asset. We don't want to damage our asset. We want to maintain that and have options moving forward. But I think the rest of it, let's figure out when that does fit into the plan and when we're able to purposefully, mindfully decide to spend that money out and after the fact.
I think the only thing I would add to that, Nate, though, is that we recognize that this was a need when we budgeted for the new parks building, and because of the money that had to get spent on the lateral, which was completely unexpected. That's why the budget to do this as part of that budget didn't happen. So it's a need that was identified and planned for, but then a different unexpected thing knocked it out.
Sure, but I'm saying that, so we've got to pull out this money. Let's let finance plan this out months ahead of time. Not react to it.
I guess the only thing there is if we give them months to plan it, we've missed another building season potentially.
And what's gonna happen to us in that timeline? I mean, like, I'm saying roof now. What happens in that additional year? Price of
Well, I
building
mean,
materials changes?
Well, we know the siding is leaking somewhat. It's in really bad shape.
Jerry, the
Could
gas
further
I have on the
degrade.
building is we knew before we finalized the 26 budget that we were going over with the sewer infrastructure for the old building. So if this is something that we really wanted to do, we should have planned it. That's just my philosophy on it. Other people have different opinions. I respect them. But mine is, we should be planning for this stuff, not reacting.
I guess I'm surprised since we knew it needed to be done that it wasn't part of the plan, but. That's probably somewhat on this committee as
Well,
much
I
as it
think
is
the
on
loan
places.
had already been. We had already taken that out. Before the lateral came up.
Look, what I'd be okay with is if we get competitive quotes for the roof, we get the roof done. And later in the year, when we're reviewing where we are 6 months into the year or 9 months into the year, if there's another opportunity to reconsider this, I would be all ears, but right now I think we should be planning for it. You know, because the next question we have to ask ourselves is this gonna be one of our priorities for spending in 27? Maybe it is. Maybe it's not.
If it helps the planning process, I could get the roof done sooner. But my schedule is full through September, so we wouldn't be able to do it till after October, after the end of September. So
The siding, you mean?
the siding, when my personal crew, myself and my crew does the siding and the addition, but the roofing is sub by the subcontractor, so. I could possibly have the roof done sooner, the siding work won't be till the end of the year.
Well, I think we should do the roof. I think the carport goes on hold. I think that if we have to get competitive bids, we have to get competitive bids. That's it. So whether it's for the roof and the siding, or for the whole shooting match. As far as that bus is near and dear to my heart. So there are other places we can store the bus. I just don't like sitting $140,000 piece of equipment sitting outside all winter. So we'll find another place to put it. In the more time, it'll sit where it sits, but. And then, so. That's what I think we should do.
I think the only important linkage, if we just do the roof now, is we know if we wanted to go with the smart side, which makes a lot of sense for long-term investment for me, that we would need to have a decision on the color for that so that we could address the soffits when the roof's done. Because otherwise, if the roof is done and the soffits are still the brown and we went with this siding, they're linked, so that would cause a challenge.
Probably have to tear them off then, because painting would be,
Yeah.
labor intense.
We didn't, okay, so
Excuse me just a second. Now, what I've seen them do is they would spray those soffit panels before you put on the roof
Correct.
with lift, and
That's what
it's a couple-hour job.
that's what I would anticipate, do it when the roof is off. Get up there and spray them, even if we get over
Yeah.
spray on the side.
spray new ones or just spray
You
what's
spray
there?
the existing one, whatever color you want.
We'd probably go up and clean them and then spray them,
So, and they're aluminum, right?
yes,
What kind of shape are they in?
it's in decent shape, that's why I
Okay.
didn't do it.
All right. Okay.
I mean, I think the intent would be that we would want a similar color scheme to blend in with our new building.
I agree with.
Yeah.
Sure. And the four colors, there's other colors here I brought, but the four colors were on sample, probably, so
Okay,
as far as the grays are available.
okay. We go into budget period. I mean, I know the SIP takes time, but in July, August. We start looking at next year's budget. I pulled up to 20, I did pull up the SIP for 2030, but it's. I don't want to take anybody's time going through it because I can't remember exactly.
I did
Where
try
did you
looking
find
up
it?
quotes.
I saved it in my own.
Yeah, we can definitely post it if it wasn't posted following the last CIP season, but just looking at it, I couldn't find anything that specifically addressed cold storage unless it was titled under just parks facility.
I'll look at the first, I couldn't find it.
So Ben, based on where we're at, what decision do we need to make today?
Well, if it is the consensus to move forward with just the roof, essentially it would be the direction or motion to seek competitive bids for the project. And then where they will be brought to, if it's brought back to Parks with a recommendation for final approval to the board. But ultimately, it'd be the direction to seek competitive quotes and for what.
I think if it's me, I would say we should seek competitive quotes for spraying the soffit after the roof is removed and before the new roof is on. And then we have to, I think Denise's point is a good one, that we match the roof and the soffit to the new building. That it, whatever, the closest extent possible.
So. I understand the bidding process. And what we're legally bound to do. So. Why didn't we do that before? Because here is a gentleman who has spent months getting this information for us, who now has to go, and his prices are now public record, even though they weren't in the packet. How do we address that? if it should have gone for RFP to begin with.
I mean, ultimately, it was the request to have it move forward, kind of last minute in terms of having this agenda item, in terms of the discussion, it's just saying what options are available. I believe it was previously discussed in some communication that there was some procurement requirements that associated with this project, and even prior to, I did say that there was procurement requirements available. So I mean, I've seen it before where this happened, where additional information is sought from a specific contractor, but we are bound by what we need to do for procurement, and we just move forward with the process. And if anybody else bids, great, it's an opportunity to sharpen pencils. Otherwise, if it's just one, there is a specific process in place as well if we only receive one bidder. So, I don't think it necessarily harms the process.
So when we go out to bid, we just ask for a bid on the roofing or both roofing and siding?
So I mean, it could be, and Eric, I can answer this, but then I can tap you in here. So I mean, ultimately, when we're talking about competitive procurement, anything needs to be an apples to apples approach. So we can ask for more than one thing, but we need to specifically allocate the line items for what we're requesting. So it's the responsibility of the village to be specific within our request of what we're looking for.
But I guess what I'm asking though is if we go out to bid on the roof and the siding, and we just do the roof, that's okay? I know it's,
yeah.
and there's specific line items in the.
Yep.
Yeah,
I
okay.
mean, ultimately, it'd be part of the solicitation to only award what it is, and that would be upfront as part of the communication that
Okay,
only specific, it would be the responsibility of the owner, i.e. village, to make the determination of the
okay.
specific modification selection.
How long is that process gonna take? 2 months?
It would be up to us if we did it, if we wanted to have it, prior to the next meeting of where we had options available for Parks Committee review. That wouldn't necessarily be unheard of. It wouldn't be a significant amount of legwork to generate what needs to go out for the competitive proposal. It just needs to be clear about what we're actually seeking to get responses to. So if it's just the 2 items, or if we're asking for everything, and then with the anticipation that there might be modifications.
Yeah, okay.
Again, my suggestion to this committee is that we get competitive bids on the roof and the spray paint.
Yeah,
the
that's sorry,
soffit.
the soffit as
And
well.
just wanted to allow the opportunity for Eric if that's.
Yeah, just a follow-up on Denise's question, and I want to thank Terry again for coming out here, because when I was instructed, gosh, it's gotta be about 6 months ago that I started this process after we had started talking about cold storage again, to find a contractor that could provide estimates for all repairs necessary for cold storage building. So I had called around to almost every single local company up here to start that process. And didn't receive a whole lot of calls back because a lot of them know the process around here, and that's why I appreciate Terry coming out and doing this legwork for us, because he was well aware of what our process is as well. So for him to put together these numbers for the committee is greatly appreciated on my end. To start the process of now going and chopping them up into individual bids, that they might be more inclined to do so, but the original request from this committee was to get a full generalized estimate put together for all repairs necessary.
And I think this committee is forgetting something also, that, if we want to have the roof done as soon as possible to protect, the village's assets, we have to address this, because this is an extension of the roof line. And we're not gonna roof what's there and then go put on an addition and then roof that. You want it done. My father was a roofer. I know a little bit of what I speak, probably enough to be dangerous. You want it done in one fell swoop. So this has to be addressed with the roof.
Unless we go with a different design, like a metal structure that's standalone over that concrete. I think we have other options.
Or find some more.
Right.
Well, I mean, there is, yeah, but. I know,
It is a big chunk of money for something that doesn't totally protect the wind and the snow is still gonna blow through.
right,
So I know we do have the public information meeting as well, but in terms of next steps, if we, like, let's just say, when is the latest that you would need to have an executed contract for in order to confirm the work? That would be in September, October timeframe. So when
what's your
would that?
timing?
So if we, like, if we executed it in summer, let's just say, would there still be availability, or is this based on, you know,
I think he
right
said he
now?
could do the right roof right away, it was the other stuff that he'd have to wait until
Yeah,
September.
that's broke down. Simply so,
Yeah.
As far as our labor, my crew, it'd probably be sometime in September. I'd have to probably. No, of course, phone rings, you don't want to turn people away, but
Mhm.
I would say by the 1st of June, probably.
So if you would like, this also can be tabled and additional information could be sought from a financial perspective. And also talking about potentially a proposed RFP.
I'd rather not table it, I'd rather make a decision and move forward. On what we're gonna do at the moment, because we're just gonna table it, come back and talk about it again.
We have the $36 in the budget. I also would support doing the roof and the soffit this year as budgeted.
Terry, a quick question on the T111 that's there right now. You mentioned that that product, because it goes right on the structure, is structural supporting it. With the current deterioration, is it still holding the structure needed, or is that
It's definitely weakened. It's deteriorated, so. I mean, you'd almost have to have engineered. A lot of loose edges, you know, it's a solid. Fastened. Sphere holds the building straight, so. And it's guesswork at this point.
I guess, Nate, that kind of answers your question,
much
which
is
is
hanging
if we do the roof now and do the siding later, if the siding's deteriorated to the point that the building's unstable, then our roof meets the ground and we start over.
I think what I hear him say is he doesn't know,
Yeah,
maybe,
in my
like you
opinion,
can't, I can't.
Yeah,
say.
no, I'd say that it's a maybe.
Yeah, that's. Because he's smart enough to say that, so I'm not, that, if I were in your shoes, I'd say the same thing, you can't know what you don't know, no matter how many times people ask you.
If you look at the building, you think it could blow over at any time, but it's been standing all these years, so. They moved it, right? It was structural, is sound enough to move.
So I think we have one motion, Mike's, I think that was a motion, sort of,
But are we directing staff? I don't know.
or are we in consensus?
Either way is fine. If it's just in consensus reach, should be directing staff for the competitive proposal for the roof, and then the painting and soffits is what was previously
Okay,
discussed.
do we have consensus on that?
I didn't hear
Sorry,
Yeah, so it'd be for seeking competitive quotes for the roof and for painting the soffit. It would be for directing staff to generate the RFP and to issue that.
No, is my opinion, because I really think that we need to, as unfortunate as it may be, we cannot piecemeal another project that this village consistently does. We poured a pad for a bus. Okay? That's where we wanted the bus to go. Something didn't work out the way it was planned, okay? Not saying whose fault that is, but it certainly wasn't this committee's fault. So what I would be in favor of is that we get a bid on building something of this nature to cover the bus, and it can be used for other things also. With now having, wind and snow and rain can blow sideways into it, but certainly this is a little bit more protective than what we originally thought with a lean-to. So I would only want to move forward with roofing the whole entire thing with something of this nature on the back for the bus that we have been talking about for 2 years.
So Denise, there are other options for that carport design than what we have there for $40,000. That could go over that concrete. You don't have to be connected to the building unless our code requires it. I don't know. You would be an expert on that, but I don't know. Cause you could put a steel carport over there. That would be tall enough for the bus to fit
It
underneath.
cannot be metal. We do not allow that in the village.
But you would agree that there's probably other options besides having this, sharing the same roof as the cold storage building?
I don't know what they are. I'm not gonna pretend to know what they are. I'm only looking at what's been presented and the work that has been done today. Now, could there be something else? Sure. I'm not gonna say what it is or how much it may cost in comparison to that. But I would not give it a nod to only re-roof what's currently there without addressing.
But then that could mean that the roof is around 35,000. And that would probably mean, based on doing the carport piece of it, another 20 grand, I don't know, would, you know.
Well, to address the steps and process you're speaking about. The design of that port, as you spoke, we could re-roof and do the soffits now, put the money in for next year for siding. We could still want to move forward with the carport, we could maybe drop it a foot or drop it 2 feet to create a roof line change there. That would solve that problem of not roofing the whole thing through and would create a little bit more tie-in design, but minimal. It would help you with your process if you wanted to roof at this time and not do the carport. You could, I don't think you can do a lean-to structure there and still get the bus under it. We wouldn't get enough pitch to warranty shingles at that, such a low pitch to keep it high enough to get that 11-foot bus under, so. But we could, the eaves are 13, we could lower it a foot or even 1.5 foot lower, still go with the same style structure, just one roof would be slightly lower.
And same roofing materials.
Yes, yes. It would be an option, it could be.
I mean, for the moment, it sounds like a, good compromise.
That's fine.
Okay, so do we have consensus on that? That meaning, we go out for bids on the roof and the metal soffit, right, or aluminum soffit, beg your pardon. And then not forgetting at some point that the carport, the design of the carport could still be cohesive with the existing or the remodeled, I guess, or the updated cold storage building. We have consensus on that?
That's what
Support
I,
that.
I support it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Gary?
I would much rather do the whole building at once,
Yeah,
but there's obviously not the consensus to make that happen. on the
well,
vote,
financially,
so
it's just tricky.
the roof has to get done. I agree with that.
Okay, so, you go with that?
I have it written down.
Okay.
Denise, did you
Really
agree
appreciate
with that?
It's good
You
enough.
said you would.
Okay.
I won't be here, so.
Really appreciate you coming. Thank you. Hold on to these. Okay? And do you think we'd have these, in a month or two? So I'm trying to help with timing in terms of the bids that we're getting back.
Yep, we can generate something and reach out to some folks and we can have a deadline and we can have it back for next month with the summary of the responses.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I can leave the samples here also,
All right,
the color samples.
you can't? Okay, great. Thanks.
It's bid with Owens Corning or Certainty, they're both the same price.
Okay.
I'll leave this all there.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
You bet,
Thank you.
Thanks. Really appreciate your time.
you bet. You're welcome.
Okay, we will now move, thanks for everyone's patience. We'll move to the public information segment of the meeting regarding the village administration building. So, was there a handout for everybody?
What?
Did everybody get a handout?
I think most
some out
folks,
there?
there was handouts that were available as part of
Okay.
this as well. So essentially, as part of the informational meeting, just wanted to, thank you all for coming to this and, to learn a little bit more about the future administration building project. And just generally have an open discussion about what some of the needs are for the facility. This will be structured in a way that I'll be providing a brief presentation at the start of this, just to provide an overview and a baseline for where we're currently at for the project. And then we'll move on to that public input portion. And as part of that as well, I did, or We did print out some different comment forms. If you wanted to leave anything after the meeting, leave any comments as part of that, you'd have the opportunity to do so. Just feel free to leave it behind, either at one of the desks or at the front station there. And then when there is an opportunity to speak, if we wouldn't mind just having one at a time, if you want to sign up on the public informational meeting form up there, providing your name and address, and then you can move forward with providing any of your public comments. So with that, as part of this project, just wanted to provide an update. So as part of the decision from the village board from December 2025, the selection of the village administration building was for the Mill Road site, which is the former maintenance building. Excuse me, I'm losing my voice here. So that would be for the former site over there. The intention for that specific site is to demolish that current building and to build or have engineering and design available for that new site that meets the specific specifications for the project. So the reason why we're here is that the Parks Committee met in February to identify the future needs for the village administration building. And they identified that they wanted to have a public information meeting early on as part of this process to provide support. It's the intention that throughout this process, we'd be community oriented and to provide as much public input as possible. So with that being said, this is the first step of many other opportunities to provide public input. So the agenda here is to cover the current administration building, some of the different deficiencies that are going on, identify the phases for the new building administration building project, and then to have that public input. So for our current administration building, it was built in the 1930s, which would make it approximately a century old. It's 1,700 square feet, which is significantly undersized for our current staffing needs, public service demands, and operational needs. Currently, we have 4 full-time staff that is housed out of that building, including the village clerk, the financial specialist treasurer, the admin assistant deputy treasurer, and then myself, the village administrator, as well as 1 part-time code compliance officer. And then we also do have at times different contracted or professional services that are also visiting that site that operate one of our other flex offices as well. So overall, the site is 0.2 acres, which severely limits the capacity for having any expansion or meaningful renovation to the site, which ultimately makes it difficult to provide any improvements or expansion, which is why we're looking at identifying a new site. So for the current building, there was a few different issues that were identified as part of it. The first one I'm going to cover here is the operational and facility constraints. So something that was brought up in prior facility studies was that there was limited parking and poor public visibility, and that ultimately there was not an opportunity to host any meetings, conduct elections, or provide adequate public service within the area. So right now we're relying on the fire station to have any public meetings, and that is something that has been identified as a deficiency within the building. We're hoping to address as part of the new building. In addition, there's also significant storage limitations that are available at the current building. Right now, we're storing all of our community records within the main area, and that any retained records are currently being stored at the Mill Road maintenance building at this time. So that would be identified as a need for the future building as well. And then on the public visibility point is that it's been identified by some members of the public that, it being tucked away within a specific outside area outside of the downtown leads to some difficulties for accessing as well as the parking difficulties. The next item here is for security and security concerns. So there is the building being a century old has significant issues with its lifespan and it has security issues. One thing is that the windows and doors are in poor condition and that it presents an opportunity for break-ins. There's also flooding in the crawl space and mechanical area. The roof leaks, there's asbestos in the ceiling, floor tiles and ductwork. And this all is being brought up just because there was an identification that there'd be an opportunity to renovate the site, but ultimately it might be more cost effective to move it to a new site. In addition, there's also mechanical, HVAC, and electrical deficiencies. Ultimately, the AC is undersized, there's no air return, there's insufficient floorboard heat, outdated and corroded electrical. All this has aging issues that would need to be identified if it was renovated. Lastly, here in terms of the current accessibility, current assessment is the accessibility and privacy. Currently, there is one set of bathrooms for the public that is not ADA compliant. There's also poor lighting, ventilation, and sound and privacy issues. So essentially, you can hear meetings between doors and between rooms. And then ultimately, there's different efficiency and staff comfort issues that are associated with the current site as well. So that's a baseline of where we're at for the current site and why we're looking to transfer to a new building on Mill Road. And that starts with identifying the different phases of the project. So phase one includes the feasibility and the budget and planning. That's where we're currently at here in the winter of 2026. Next, we'd be moving on to the phase two, which would be for design, engineering, and the compliance phase of the project. Phase three would then be for the construction procurement, so identifying a contractor. And then phase four would actually be the construction part of the project. So as part of the presentation, I did outline some general timeframes that we were looking at for this project. Just wanted to note that essentially that timeline would be the fastest route without taking any breaks as part of the process. And that there might be some unexpecteds or additional considerations as part of each phase, which may increase that timeline to a later date. So generally, we're looking from 2026 for the start of the project to 2028, 2029 at the end of the project. So as I stated, right now we're in the feasibility and needs assessment phase. So as part of the agenda packet, village staff did put together a needs assessment outlining the various needs that would be associated with the new building. We outlined staff and operations needs, public and governance needs, storage and records needs, as well as access and infrastructure needs. So as part of that, we identified various areas where there needed to be private, flexible, or public-facing workstations. And we also identified different meeting room capacities, so having a meeting room for staff, having a meeting room for the governing board chambers. And then we also discussed different storage needs along with it. So there are specific storage requirements that are not being met at the current building, that there'd be an opportunity to correct as part of the new building. So overall, the last thing here would be for accessibility and infrastructure for the ADA access, lobbies and restroom areas, as well as technology and security systems. So all of that would be identified as part of the new facility to ultimately make the building up to 21st century standards. So with that being said, we can move on here to the next phase here, which would be the funding overview. So currently what is being budgeted for the project is $3.25 million as identified within the capital improvement plan. That number was initially intended for the Logger Quest site, which ultimately moving for the Mill Road site, there is not a specific cost estimate that is identified for the project. As we move along to the engineering and design phase of the project, we'll have a better estimate about what would and would not be available for that cost estimate. With that being said, the intention for the 3.25 million or for the project in general was to have planned funding via bond proceeds, meaning long-term funding that would be financed, that would be paid through long-term debt service. That it's important to note here that as part of that phase, it would move on to the architecture and engineering procurement. So that's where we're currently going for the procurement timeframe here. So similarly to the discussion that we had for the cold storage site, there are specific requirements that a municipality must follow in order to procure professional services and for prime construction contractors. So we need to follow those processes in order to procure an architecture and engineering firm. So the most likely path forward for that would be to use a qualification-based selection process that would take into account cost as well. So essentially we would select a potential firm based not only on price, but also on experience and capacity as well. And that ultimately would be looking to enter into a contract with them for the formal site design, planning, as well as the bidding process as well. So once an engineering firm has been identified, they're going to be moving forward to site planning and for design planning. So they would assist staff. They would assist they would work in coordination with staff to identify what the needs are for the facility based on the limitations and advantages of the specific Mill Road site. So some things that would be looking to address would be parking capacity, vehicle and pedestrian circulation, utility, stormwater, and any other constraints that would be associated with that building. So once they have that all identified, they would have a specific site plan that would potentially be laid out for the project, where we'd be bringing that back over to the committee and village board level, and there'd be an opportunity to review, and then we'd also have an opportunity to provide that to the public and seek input on that time as well. As part of that site plan, we'd also want to make considerations for any technology, security, accessibility, sustainability options that'd be available, and prepare different options that would be available for review at that time. So with that, we then move into the sustainability, security, and accessibility phase. As we said, within the current building, there are many different deficits that we would like to meet as part of this new building, and that we want to consider as part of this site design process, what should go into it and what consideration should be made for sustainability, security, and accessibility. No matter what, we need to make sure that we have ADA compliance within all the public and staffing areas as well, and that there also be an opportunity for having that included from the governing board areas as well. For the security reasons, we'd want to have different fob-based key systems in place, and then we want to make sure to secure all our records within secure offices or within secure areas. And then we'd also have exterior cameras for public facing spaces as well, and then making sure that we have our windows secured at the public interaction areas as well. Lastly, here, just for sustainability, if there's any opportunities for energy efficiency that could be incorporated for the project or additional insulation, that's something that we do design process. And then moving on here to regulatory compliance, is that just being that it is a public building or a municipal public building, there are additional requirements from the state regulations that would need to be complied with as well. So there'd be an opportunity to work with the architecture and engineering firms to make sure we meet all of those requirements. And then we'd also need to meet our own requirements as well in terms of zoning and permitting. So as this site planning and design planning gets closer to the end, we'd work through the process with the plan commission to have everything through for zoning and permitting. With that, we'd also want to make sure to prepare any documentation and have final approvals prior to moving on to the construction procurement. And trying to speed it along here, but for the construction procurement, similarly, for the architecture and engineering, we have specific bidding requirements that would be associated with the project. And then ultimately, we need to comply with those moving forward. Anything over $25,000 would need to be competitively procured. We would work with the architects and engineers as part of this project to solicit out bids for a competitive procurement process. And bids would be selected based on the lowest qualified and lowest responsible bidder. So with that, we would have a advertisement plan and evaluation plan in place prior to moving forward to this phase, and that construction would begin only after the execution of the contract was in place. So then lastly here, we'd be moving on to the construction phase of the project, which would begin only after the competitive bidding and the contract was awarded following Wisconsin Public Works statutes. We'd want to make sure to have certified plans in place with code compliance and quality in mind, and that we would work with an engineer if they were available on site. Otherwise, staff would work directly with the prime construction contractor for the project to make sure that we're meeting all the construction deadlines and we meet safety and everything that goes along with construction. And then lastly here would be for the construction closeout, would be having the final inspection and punch list and completion of the project, and having delivered as-built, warranty, O&M manuals, and everything that would go along with it. So when looking at this, what the intention was in the onset was to provide the opportunity for a full lifespan view of what this project would encompass, with some different dates that would be identified as part of each one of these phases, and then ultimately provide an opportunity as the needs assessment phase to get input from the public and address those early on so that it could be incorporated prior to moving into the architecture and engineering phase. So again, just to summarize some of the different points of the presentation, is that there are certainly identified needs that are associated with the current building. We're identifying a new building to address a lot of those needs, and that there's an opportunity to have public input early on as part of this process as we move through the lifespan. So with that, I'm going to open it up if there are any individuals that would like to come forward and providing input as part of the proposed project. As I said at the beginning of the presentation, if you wouldn't mind just coming forward to the front table, providing your name and address written down, and then feel free to speak up and share what you'd like for the discussion. And this is not something where we can't respond back as well. We can definitely have it be a two-way street. Would anyone like to?
Anyone
at all?
Thanks. My name is Joanne Morris, and I really have two questions. One is, as you look at the Mill Road site, did you feel you had adequate space there to meet all of your needs for building? I mean, it is a small space. It's not even an acre. So is there a sense that you can accommodate the building you need in that small space?
I'll answer that if no one else.
Well, I think that there's 3 of the board members that would probably say yes, there is, and there's 2 that would not, so there's not an agreement on there.
The village board was split, 4-3. 4 thought that there was enough room, 3 did not. This committee is also split, that location.
And in addition to that, we had a citizens committee that took a look at the requirements, including the location and the space, who made a recommendation.
Which was also split.
That was also split, that committee. The committee's number 1 recommendation, was the Mill Road site. And the number 2 recommendation was the Lagerquist, because there was acres and acres.
I think that also kind of is indicative of a split decision, where you had almost half the people wanted to see it go Lagerquist, you had slightly more than half the people. It's not, that's just reinforcing the same thing, like 3 of the 7 members wanted to see it go in Lagerquist, so they had it as their number 1 site. 4 of the 7 members had Mill as their number 1 site, so yeah, it's gonna end up being one of those.
So Joanne, I think a lot of it's driven by how big the building should be,
Right,
right?
and if you can put that footprint and parking there, and I guess my
Right.
question is, before you go down this whole path, if there's not an initial assessment that you can build there what you need, why go through all this expense and this?
Well,
process?
that's why we're doing the assessment, to see what we need. So the building that was proposed for Lagerquist was 8,000 square feet. And when Ayers came in and did their facility study, called for a building that was between 6,500 square feet and 5,800 square feet. So it was a little bit more than what the Ayers study suggested, based on the survey that they did. And the Parks Committee at that time did refer to that survey, but the building ended up being larger. So what we're gonna look at is, how many offices do we need? What type of office is it? Is it an office with a door or not? Is it a cubicle? Is it public facing? So someone comes in and works with the clerk, public facing. The other thing that we'll look at is, how big does the boardroom, meaning where we have our board meetings, how large does that need to be? That started out holding 175 people. We average 25 people for our meetings at the most. So then there was a discussion about, maybe it should be 75, maybe it should be 50. There was definitely a difference of opinion on that. So that's when we refer to, when Ben refers to an assessment in our packets, which you do not see, is line by line. So what type of office should the administrator have? What, not type, meaning, but size, and does it have a door? And what about the clerk, and does it have a door, and so forth.
Wasn't that process done to come up with the other square footage already?
It was, I didn't see it. In all the records that we went through, we we never,
So
we didn't see that assessment. All we saw was the facility study and the suggested floor plan that Ayers did. And again, that was a building that was at the most 6,500 square
But
feet.
they paid
Can
them
I
to do that
interject before you
assessment?
move on, Joanne?
Hmm?
McMahon did do an assessment with staff.
Yep,
And so they took all of that into consideration when they started drawing their blueprints. So there were kind of three different assessments done.
I guess I'm just questioning the process and how much has already been completed, and I'm assuming you paid for that.
we did.
So that you shouldn't have to do that again. Or you should at least go back and confirm the work that's already been done, so you're not gonna pay for that whole thing all over.
Well, we are paying for an assessment again, because we're doing that ourselves. We are gonna pay for new engineering and a new design. Yep.
Okay, and then my other question is, and this really comes later because of that. But couldn't you spend if you get to the point where it looks like the Mill Road is feasible, then couldn't you go ahead and get the demolition done earlier? That's just my other question. Thank you.
Thank you. Done earlier.
I think there's also some stuff that's still in that building, but I don't think anybody has any particular attachment to that building staying up.
I'd like to clarify something for the record. The last, out of the 4 plans that McMahon and Associates, drew up, the final one that was, approved, by the village board to move forward with, was, a total square footage of about 8,200 square feet. But the building itself was 7,200 square feet, and there was 1,000 square foot porch on it. So I want to make sure that we have the correct numbers if we're referencing what was done in the past.
Come on up, Dick.
Hello, my name is Dick Forrest. I live at 2340 Maple Drive in Sister Bay. And I chaired the ad hoc building committee and the assessments that we did, and everyone is absolutely correct. We were split on the location. We looked at 18 locations within the village. We came down to really 2, and ultimately voted 3-2 to move to the site the site that we're now talking about. I just want to say this, there were some real reasons. And really part of them I heard in an earlier discussion today, the surprises that take place when you're constructing a new facility. The one earlier was the sewer and water lateral that I don't know how it was missed or that it was more expensive than originally thought. But that was one of the issues that we felt was important with the Mill Road site, was that sewer and water was there. The second was blacktop. When you start to blacktop an area, a virgin area or a new blacktop with 40, 45 parking spots, it's very expensive. Looking at this document today in the blue or the original considerations, and looking at the current building, poor public visibility was talked about. And that's one of the things that we also talked about that didn't come to the final discussion point. But we felt that this is a very important building within the village. Voting, public meetings, et cetera, and that building located on an annex site east of Sister Bay was not as good as inside the building. I too have some concerns rather with information about the site that I'm not sure has been decided on. You know, the evaluation to the size of the building is currently taking place, as I understand it. But remember, Denise Berto, you know, is really the expert on our zoning here in town, and I heard a lot of things in the last meeting when we talked about this that I didn't know. For example, I think you mentioned that a municipal building has greater setbacks to rear yard and side yard. Is that correct?
It's when there is, different. Two sides of the Mill Road site abut residential. And, when that happens, there are larger setbacks. Side yard setbacks, rear yard setbacks, in the village's zoning code. And that is, so there's all that much less space now that, you are able to cite any particular structure on.
And that becomes a concern for me because, you know, we apparently within our zoning plans have identified some hurdles for municipalities. It seemed to me, and I don't wanna dig on anyone, but as we looked at these other sites, and I think probably 7 of the sites that we looked at could have handled a municipal building quite readily and quite acceptably. But we often heard reasons why not from the current administrator as opposed to why. And I don't think we've looked enough at the whys of the mill site. I think that when we evaluate the site for, you know, today we had 18 people here. I know you talked about 25 at a normal meeting. I think 22 is the most I've ever seen.
Exactly.
And that's
usually
rare.
5. Yeah.
As I walked past that site today from my home, I noted that, you know, with the ingress and egress to the building that's there, once that's gone, it'll give us 6 to 8 additional sites on the road to that particular piece of property. But I don't want to get this committee too far down the road and then someone to suggest that we are going against our own zoning codes, which we certainly do in this town at times. You know, I have a very good friend who had a restaurant and wasn't able to put a table outside it to have people sit and wait. And now it's one of the most popular restaurants and expanded, and there's no parking at all, and you know, you know, we don't put parking in front of the buildings, and yet some of the buildings, like the restaurant down the street, is right at the sidewalk. So there doesn't seem to be consistencies to some of our zoning codes and requirements. But I still don't want to delay this project or add additional expense to the project by someone coming along. And so I was hoping after a meeting I was at a few months ago, when we talked about some of the novelties of our zoning code, that those could be changed prior to this discussion. They have not, but I certainly don't want to slow down the discussion. The other thing I'd like to mention is I think it's very important on the visibility. Mill Road is full of parked cars through the 4 to 5 months of the summer now, as they go to concerts, the beach, et cetera, et cetera. I would love to see public bathrooms, at least part of them, attached to the front of the building. So as parents are bringing their children back to the cars and they have to go to the bathroom, they can use those public bathrooms and be part of this building. I would like to see, I went into the municipal building a while back to ask some questions about voting. And the people there were very, very helpful, and they were able to dialogue between themselves and discuss and get me the correct answer, which I really appreciated. And so the original design that I saw showed not cubicles, but offices. And I think that's quite unattractive to a municipal building, especially in a area the size of Sister Bay. We want to be able to walk in and be welcome to see our people. We don't necessarily want to come in with an appointment, but the dialogue that goes on in there, I think, is important. And I think cubicles and office space that we can go to and we need to have separation is important. But the design that I saw was, I think, with 6 offices and 2 meeting rooms and then the large meeting room. And I just felt the building was designed very good with no personality or personable space.
There were 3 public facing cubicles
Okay, I may not have seen that.
right in the lobby.
You stayed in the lobby. You didn't talk to
So,
Right.
yeah. And that the area there that, but was designed as a 2,000 square foot, was it a waiting area or a separation from? Originally it was designed as a,
It's an
The
atrium.
first plan was the very large atrium that was
that
Two stories
eventually
tall,
came out.
that was eventually removed.
So, anyway, we ended up at that site. It is an interesting site. There's, I think, if I mentioned it correctly, and looked at the plot plan, there's about a 8-foot variance from the front to the back. And I think that could be designed nicely with permanent storage and a level that's still accessible to the ADA compliant, but not on a day-to-day basis. So I think there's a lot you can do with the site. And I just appreciate the work that the village is currently doing with public input. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Dick. Mary?
My name is Mary Smythe. I live at 10683 Woodcrest Lane. And Ben, did you say, you said the size, but I have a hard time hearing everything that's said. What is the size of the Mill Road property?
Yeah, so for a square footage, what was initially discussed within the current needs assessment, it was around like 5 to 6 thousand square feet.
Mary, are you asking about the size of our current parks building?
I'm asking about the size of the plot of land
Oh,
that we would have available to
It's
put a building on.
About an acre.
about an acre.
About an acre.
Yep,
And then I just heard Denise say that out of that acre will be cut setback because it's residential on two sides. Is that accurate also?
That's the way the code looks now.
So what happens, I believe it defers to the more restrictive setback, or if it's an adjoining property, correct, Denise?
Yes.
So on those two sides, it would be the residential setback.
And then I have another question, and that is, and perhaps my ignorance, but has the village invested in a routine study, say every 5 years, this is what the projections are for Sister Bay and their growth and incoming population and building, so that you have a sense when we build this building, the equivalent would be 95 years since, he said, about since the last building was built. In 95 years, will this be a sufficient size? Because we don't want to rebuild a building.
so in terms of planning, is that the plan
Yeah.
that we're talking about is more than likely the comprehensive plan, which is part of it. We're identifying which future growth would occur within the village for a 20-year time period. And that's part of the needs assessment that we're doing right now, is identifying if there is a need for future growth, whether or not that means staffing or record retention. But that's part of the needs assessment right now. And then in terms of long-term facility planning, is that AIRS conducted a study in 2023 for facility planning, not only for the current administration building, but also for some of the other facilities in the village as well.
I'm glad there'll be more opportunities for input.
I just-
And
Hold up the GIS, it's 1.27 acres, so it's 1.27 acres. The exact.
And as a person very interested in the environment and sustainability, I would like to pave over less property than more property. I also have concerns about, as we grow and people hopefully get more and more interested in their village government, that there are enough places to park for a meeting that's important to the village. I recall that about a year or maybe 2 years ago, the power went out, at least for Woodcrest Village. About 3 or 4 days, we were out till Saturday at noon. And most of us moved in with friends or into hotels. Some of us came here to the fire station to charge our devices. And I'm wondering if that is part of the planning for this new administration building, or will the default continue to be for the fire department. I don't need an answer, I just want to make sure that included in your thought processes are big storms, power going out for a certain amount of time. And then just to follow up on me very briefly, the cost savings over time pay back every penny that you pay to build a LEED certified building. And I can't imagine that at this moment in time, we aren't going to be concerned about how much we are spending on the infrastructure once it's built. So I would hopefully, I would hope that you will spend money on windows and insulation and original construction that will save all the residents of Sister Bay money done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Sure, anybody online?
I have a question.
Sure, Nick.
Thank you. Nick Devley, the old Kramer Farm on Orchard. So I've been following this from the beginning and I've spent a lot of time through the years in the administration building. I'm glad there's gonna be a new one built. Roughly, how much money was spent figuring out the Lagerquist property? Do we know? Between architectural, engineer, all that before it was decided that a board would be created to decide where it was gonna go?
I do know offhand, so initially what was proposed, it was a two-parter, so one was for site design, preliminary site design. And that was for $24,000 that was spent for the contractor for that site. And then it was proposed in the December 2025 meeting for additional cost of 2002, excuse me. Trying to think of what the amount was. It was for 200,000 plus is what was allocated for the architecture and engineering services for the Lagerquist site, which did not move forward.
But it
So-
wasn't spent.
So it wasn't spent. The only thing that was spent was for the $24,000, but that was what was proposed for that building at that time. And typically it's about 15% of what the project costs are for engineering. But yes, only the $24,000 was spent for at that time.
Understood. So I know there was a vote last year that Park and Rec had decided to move forward, and then the vote changed. And the village board decided not to move forward, and then the committee was created. Assuming that this does end up on the Mill Road site, is this the right committee or board then that I can ask the question, what is the intention with the Lagerquist property? I mean, I personally like the idea of it going on a piece of property that the village spent a whole bunch of taxpayer money to obtain, not necessarily with any input from the public. So will the village consider selling that 40 or 50 acre lot to help offset the cost of the admin building?
I think that, I think that we have to be careful because that's not what we're here to talk about. So Ben, if you need to cut me off here at some point, but that's really gonna, that's the discussion that's beyond the scope of what we're talking about today. I think to your point, Nick, there wasn't a discussion with the public about what was gonna happen out on Lagerquist, and that's something that actually should happen. You know, it was a rather quick process that came available and the decision was made rapidly. Some people would say that this was in mind out there. That wasn't the discussion that I recall, what I heard. So it's likely gonna be the village board with input from Parks, Properties and Streets that can handle it. There is no answer to that today, and that's something that
Sure,
we
but that's
do
the
need to have.
board, the village board would ultimately make that, not finance or park, but the village
I mean,
board.
ultimately, everything but a few specific things come back to the village board.
Sure,
There's some things that plan does, you just plan, but most things will come back to the village board, yeah.
Just
understood.
to reiterate that as well, so yeah, the Village of Sister Bay operates under a committee structure, so essentially it's up to the committees to weigh in on different agenda items and then to provide a recommendation for the village board. Right now.
That's what I was wondering is who provides the recommendation? I guess I should.
Yeah. So, Nate is right now, that's not, an action item, in the future, we're looking at what the maintenance is for that specific site, and it, can be a discussion, later on that would be evaluated.
Okay, I
by the
assumed
governing
it
board.
couldn't be answered. I just see one tying directly into the other, in terms of cash flow and that kind of thing. That's really what I was wondering was what the intention was if this does end up on Mill Road, what we're gonna do with that other property. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick.
Just to follow up on something, Nick, the finance committee did recommend to the village board, but the village board has, for couple months now, not addressed it yet. And that was to repurpose, the broadband loan that we took out and use it for the administration building. So there would be, we've already borrowed it, we're already making payments on it.
Okay.
We're also, pretty closely breaking even because we have it invested. We're making almost as much money as what our interest payments are, and so it would be, according to the finance committee, the wisest to use that for the administration moving forward, instead of,
Just a giant home.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
There could be some hurdles, though. We'll have to work with a professional. There's a process that the state requires. You can't just do it.
Also, that's not been a recommendation for finance, but let's not go
I
down
don't think
the
it's a design
weeds.
topic, so we
That's
probably
not,
should-
that's not an agenda item. I just don't want to let that sit out there without saying, no, that's not.
Okay, anybody else?
yes.
Louise?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, it's Patrice again. I just had a comment. If the new administration building does go on Mill Road, I am hoping that the design can be very similar to the one that was drawn up for the Lagerquist property being of historical nature. Again, it needs to reflect the personality of the village and our Scandinavian roots. And if we could just make sure that it's not a modern big building that does not fit in the village. We want something that's historical, attractive, and charming that tourists, visitors, and residents can be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have John Majewski.
Okay.
Louise, it's John Lejeski with
Hi.
the Sister Bay Historical Society. I just want to make the group aware of the facility that we are planning on the historical site at Corner of the Past. We're in the process of renovating a 107-year-old barn into a state-of-the-art facility for our museum property. Part of that facility will have an event space that will hold upwards of 120 people, and it will be fully acclimatized and up to current codes. We certainly have plenty of parking for major meetings. So as you think about this new administrative building, think about if there is a need for a large meeting space, we would be more than happy to accommodate the village requirements. The village has been more than accommodating and financially supportive of the Historical Society over the years, and we would be very, very happy to host occasionally large meetings in the facility once it's completed. I just want you to know that that will be available as we move that project forward.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anybody else? Okay, do we have to formally close this?
Nope, as long as we're all good, then nobody else is looking to speak. We can move on to the next agenda item, but just before we do so, I just wanted to thank everyone for the opportunity for coming to the public informational meeting. As I said, if you do want to provide any comments as well, following the meeting, there's an opportunity to provide a slip and to write down any of those comments and leave it behind at this table up here. Otherwise, you can also send any correspondence as follow-up from the meeting to be collected to the administrator email that's included on the presentation. So thank you again for coming here today.
And we would always welcome, and all of you or any of our residents to follow our progress, which is available. If you go to the village website, you can take a look at the minutes of our meetings or take a look and see when the next meeting is scheduled. Okay, now we are on to item number 5E. So, sorry, we are on to 5F, no, 5E. Future
Yep.
administration building. So this is in our packet. This is an assessment review and planning for next steps.
Yep, so as part of the past February 2nd meeting, it was the direction of the Parks Committee to direct staff to generate a needs assessment based on the review from various sources. So essentially what we did is I put together just an informal needs assessment reports that identified various needs for village staff, for records, for public meeting areas. The methodology for this was essentially that we had a baseline of what was needed for the facility. I did talk to all the different members of the village administration building to get their input on any of their needs. And I also coordinated with McMahon, just talking about what they did for some of their facilities as well. They directed us to the AIRS report from 2023. I'm talking about that a lot of their information that they included was based on that 2023 AIRS report. And as I said, this was the draft needs assessment that was conducted by staff, and that what we're looking to get out of this is essentially based on the public input. If there's anything that should be modified as part of this report, or generally if there should be an additional pause period to incorporate any of the comments from the public informational meeting, that would be an opportunity to do so. But just generally seeking next steps on the future administration building project from a Parks Committee perspective.
So Ben, just let's see, I'm looking at the packet, so pages, make sure I'm looking at the right pages for everybody. If I look at pages, administration building needs assessment, which is page 21 in the packet. So that's a lot, there's a lot of text from page 21 through page 20, I just want to make sure I'm right about this, 26. Sorry, 5, and then when you get to 26, I think, page 26, which is like the spreadsheet, right?
Yep.
That is just a recap essentially of what the text indicates.
Correct, is just working through this, I am not an engineer, just looking at this, it's essentially an outline of what was discussed from what is currently needed for current staff. And then identifying what the different functions and how they relate to one another, as well as where records and technology fits into things. All of that was identified on a line item basement on page 26. When talking about where the locations are for office space, where is their general public space, where are the governing board chambers, and going through each one of the different amenities or facilities and identifying if there is a designated personnel or a specific function that's associated with it, and then including any specific requirements that might be associated with that room. And then I did also just conduct some research on what the minimum and maximum general square footage is for each one of those rooms, which ultimately resulted in what the numbers were for the bottom. Again, not for the purpose of engineering, but just for the purpose of estimating what it might look like if we included these specific amenities.
Okay, and just for the sake of, so everybody's clear, I think. So for instance, on the first line, it says private workstation, that's an office with a door.
Yes, and for the most part, when we're talking about a private workstation, it's because there are specific records that would be associated with it. So for example, right now it's kind of, for elections, it could certainly be better in terms of keeping any of the election records private and secure. Currently, all the financial records are within the finance specialist and treasurer's office, and all the human resources functions are within the administrator office. All of that would carry in to the new building is what is being proposed.
Okay, and then what we're looking at here was reviewed with the current, all the team members in the admin office?
Yep, so went around, shared what it was for the document and for the spreadsheet. Had some discussions about what some of the main priorities are, and that was incorporated into what was needed or what was proposed as part of the needs assessment.
Okay.
And like I said, I did also have a conversation with some representatives from McMahon talking about what some of their thoughts were on it. And they didn't have a specific document that they had in mind for the Logger Quest site specifically, but they said that they used quite a bit of the 2023 AIRS report for their final site plan.
Okay.
Are there any staff positions not currently housed in the administration building that would be moved there? I thought there was one before, but I can't remember what it was.
So the only thing that has changed since maybe initially was designed was for the utility clerk position, which has been moved over to the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay, and that's, the intent is for that to stay there.
That was the understanding when the decision was made for that time. I haven't seen any issues with that personally. I think it, working with Megan for the utilities director and the utility clerk for ERA, I think it works very well together at that
No
site.
issues with access for public or anything like that, that's been.
No, we do get a lot of questions for utility payments, just because they were so used to doing it at the administration building. But we have something posted at our door that says that, and whenever we have a call, we just transfer over, so.
And so in this design, or in this assessment, sir, we have one office that would be for future staffing, and then one workstation for future staffing, right?
Yeah, so if there was any future identified needs that would provide some additional room if necessary, and that it could also be an opportunity to use that for temporary storage if need be.
Okay, and then there's one for the building inspector who's in and out and or anybody else that would be there that needs.
Yep.
He
so-
doesn't, he's not there permanently,
So
but
for example, right
frequently.
now, we currently have our auditors
The auditors.
at our facility.
Right.
And that they are taking the station that the code compliance officer usually uses, and they're there, you know, on and off for a period of time as well. So it'd be an opportunity to have that space available.
Okay. So maybe the best thing to do, I think we just, to save time, make it as efficient as possible, we could, assuming everybody's had a chance to review this. If we can go committee member by committee member, if you guys have questions or pushbacks, or I'm not sure about this, let's do that. And, or make a comment if you have a comment about these assessments, and if you think that you want to change it or make a comment or whatever, Nate.
Okay, so I don't know that we need that many private offices. I think you could have something like a floating private office. And also look at where the village admin is at right now. There's a private office available for the clerk that's not being utilized. I think that there's a lot of synergy that is lost when you put people in their little silos on there. You need it. And you need to be able to conduct private business, but I don't know about having them permanently there. I also.
We have three in this scenario, right?
Yeah, and I think, didn't we say, so is the inspector, the building inspector is a workstation or an office here?
So that would be
Workstation.
for a flexible workstation.
Okay,
It's not a private office. The private office would be the village clerk, the treasurer, and the village administrator.
and I think you probably do need three offices. I just think it's a matter of how I'd allocate it. I think that you just depends, but you probably don't need your clerk in an office all the time. There's things I certainly need to do to conduct that. And I think one of the things you mentioned was storage on there, and that could be.
Yeah, so what was initially discussed is that, you know, there is one front facing where I guess there's two front facing workstations,
Right.
one that's dedicated for admin assistant or deputy treasurer.
Yeah.
And that essentially would be an opportunity for intake, public discussion, but there's also a second window that would be used when needed as part of that. And again, this is not just a final plan, this is just what was initially discussed. And that having, you know, either the village clerk or the code compliance officer be able to have access to that front station.
Because then they're public facing.
And the only requirement is just for better elections records, security. So just having something more secure if it isn't in an office as an alternative would be the consideration for that as well.
Okay, I mean, this is not the only time we're gonna talk about this.
Yeah.
I guess,
I'm not gonna be
Yeah.
offended if there is any comments. This is just, you know, what was there, and that if there is feedback, I'm totally welcome to it for that.
I also think that our meeting space, I think we only really need one conference room or one meeting room in there, because we're not gonna lose this facility. It's gonna be a short walk down the street. Very accessible still, and I think that we should if you look at 50 and 100 years from now, how many people are actually gonna come to meetings? I mean, 10 years ago, there was very little interaction remotely, and as generations shift, you're not gonna have nearly as many people show up at meetings. We've seen that in our lives.
People show up in person than we did Zoom in today.
Sure, and we should make sure that we have room for all of that
But
number
that
of
was-
people, not,
25, not
Yeah,
150.
I think that we need to have our space for us and an additional 30 people is where I think, and 30 people is a pretty high water mark. It's kind of like building the parking lot at the mall for Black Friday.
Well, this
Right, but
says,
that's not what was happening in the last drawing.
this says it seats.
I'm talking about the needs on here. I'm not talking about what the drawing is. I'm saying what it's listed on here. So that's what I'm addressing.
But it says between 50 and 75 people.
Right, which is the same size as this room.
It doesn't say more than 75. I mean, it could be 50.
I understand. I'm saying that's even probably, right now, that's actually calling for 2 meeting rooms.
No, the other meeting room, and why don't you explain
Yeah.
what the other meeting room is?
So just what was initially proposed is, right now for any of the meeting areas that all the staff have to drive over to the wastewater treatment plant, and that's where we conduct, the managers, meeting, following a board meeting. It would be proposed about having that as part of the administration, building, is to have some type of conferencing area where either people could be, zooming in or just generally hold the managers meeting there. But there'd be an area for staff that would be a meeting area. The second area would be for if there was any interest in having a conference room off of the governing board chambers for, any specific uses. It's very common to have it for some type of executive session, things like that.
I guess what I'm saying is the governing meeting room could also be that meeting room. You don't need to have a governing meeting room and then.
Same,
you could
same
use-
space.
Yeah, the same space. You don't need to have a separate space for the manager's meeting.
Yeah, it depends how it's laid out for it. It just would be, as long as there's no issues with going back into, probably the staffing area. Like that would,
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
thoughts I have.
Yeah, I mean, certainly it could be a design choice of situating it such that one way goes to the offices and one way goes to the large meeting room or something.
Ben, can you just explain to me real quick, when you think of elections? I'm assuming that you might do early voting in this building, but we'll still use fire station or other locations for general elections and voting.
generally what's being proposed is that anything for elections would be in the similar room to here, but at the administration building. And that there would just be a small storage area for the elections equipment, similarly to how it is here, just on the home turf of the
Right.
village
So
administration.
it's all under one roof.
Mhm.
Because right now, when they're getting ready for elections, so there's.
And just think about it this way, is that not everyone's here all the time
Right.
for this, and that if they decided to break down the door with an axe, and nobody was here to man it, the election equipment could be compromised.
Well, hold on, I mean, like, you're never gonna stop somebody
Yeah.
that's determined to get there, so.
But it's
Right,
about
yeah, that's
efficiencies. Forget about
That's,
that.
that's, the efficiency is fine, but
Yeah,
It's
I'm just
really
gonna push
about
back on the axe wielding mania.
yeah, hey,
We can't protect ourselves from that without
Can't
an
protect
extreme.
Yeah,
I
let's
mean,
say there were no axes.
Yeah,
Let's say
maybe
giant-
if we're looking at that, we should really look at renovating the bank hall.
right.
That might be a better
But
option.
we're paying staff to get ready for an election or something like that. Why don't we make it efficient? Why don't we make it as efficient as possible for them to do that, so then they can do the other work that they're doing? So that's really what it's about.
And so having the elections equipment within one location, and then also having the specific administration of it as well, in terms of all the documentation secure within another area that's staff driven as well.
Are there state laws or federal laws that govern the size of the election space?
Not necessarily that I'm aware of. I can ask Julie if there's anything that she knows, but if it's something that would be comparable, a little smaller to this room.
Yeah, I didn't know if this
that would be-
facility had anything that didn't make it compatible with elections or not.
No,
Have to be ADA, I'm guessing.
yeah, so it would have to be ADA accessible for it, and I'm not quite sure about sizing for it, but I can ask Julie when we get back.
Julie has responded, she's tuning in, and she does say that there are ADA requirements.
Nothing about size requirements.
Just not just, but accessibility of them.
Let's see.
Maybe.
She also reads, theoretically, the larger boardroom would be a future option for another polling station if needed. That's correct. Would require.
Louise,
Yes, sorry.
I'd just like to say as a poll worker, that this room is a good size for the November election.
Okay.
We kind of fill it up in terms of people waiting in line and desks back here and voting booths here
Okay,
and extra voting booths here and the machine back here
yeah,
and a work desk.
okay.
So I don't know if there are requirements, but I can say that you can't push us all into a small space here.
It wouldn't be because the new boardroom is gonna be between 1,500 and 2,000 square feet. You'll be fine.
Julie has also, she agrees with you, Miss Mary. And she also says that the requirements, let's see, you just have to have 2 separate areas for check-in and voting.
Okay.
And she apologizes that she does not have her mic on.
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Julie.
Thanks, Sarah. Okay, Jerry, anything from you on this?
No, I mean, this looks like very similar to the requirements that we worked with before. I think the challenge will be with a room this size, plus the offices and storage and a meeting space, fitting it in that location, but the engineer will have to work some Tetris miracles.
Mike, you got any
Not any more than I just.
offer? Okay. Okay, Denise?
A couple comments, bathrooms are listed here, but bathrooms are really dictated by code.
Okay.
So until we know the size, but we can't really determine. The architect engineer will know that, also the village has code. The executive conference room states, seating for up to 10, that is too small. In the last plan, I think, because we have 7 board members, if we need to go into executive session, we will have, an administrator, a clerk, and most likely an attorney. And that would give us, if we have it for 12, if there was any other staff member that needed to be included, it'd give us a little bit of breathing room, but 10 is the absolute minimum. So I think 12 would be more appropriate.
So instead of 10, 12, okay.
I didn't love the couple of different places that it talked about technology and infrastructure, IT needs, that our servers could be in a utility closet or room or whatever. I think we should be able to protect our server and secure it and not have just anybody going in there to the supply storage or anything else. I think it should be separate.
So that was included within the office space area, so that wouldn't be that wasn't necessarily public facing accessible.
I'm even talking about,
You're talking about separate building?
no,
Hmm.
no, I knew it wasn't public facing,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying, I still don't like the idea of it with,
A secure space is what you're saying.
Yeah, so I mean, that's what essentially right now, that's what it currently is in the storage room, just accessible that anybody would get there. And I did include just a separate portion as well, if there was interest in having the separate server room. as
that's what
well.
I'm saying. I
Yeah.
just like to see a separate room, that's my 2 cents. It mentions, security cameras on the exterior of the building. I think it would behoove us to, have one on, the interior in our lobby and entrance area. Not saying we have to have cameras down every hallway or any other place, but, I think that would be
careful consideration on that, because you don't wanna make staff feel like they're watched, but I understand what you're saying about making sure. You need to capture the entries, but being very methodic not to
Right,
try and watch people working.
correct,
It's,
right.
it's not a good look, it's not a good
No.
feel.
No, not talking about that at all. I would like this opportunity to reiterate once again, it's not what you think I'm gonna say. That at one point in time, a couple of years ago, we had a plan. And I'm gonna buzz through this really quick. The Parks Maintenance Building was going to be built. We were gonna build the admin building, we were gonna move out of the current location. We were going to address the Mill Road Triangle and the DNR encumbrance. And it all had been laid out timely. That they would just happen methodically and work. Now, I understand the assessment on the admin building. We're a far cry from drawing anything or whatever. But I want to remind this committee and the village board that there are things that we keep making individual decisions on. And that we are not addressing the bigger picture on how it's all going to flow and work. And I think, and obviously one of them is the DNR encumbrance, and I didn't understand what you said earlier about the letter or the appraisal, but I will talk to you after the meeting about that, Ben. I'm just concerned on piecemealing things, making decisions, and there is no flow.
Okay, anything else, Denise? No? What else do you need from us?
Yeah, so I mean, ultimately, taking in feedback, just seeing if there was anything that, to bring this back and include any input that was from the public informational meeting. There could be another opportunity to touch this. But essentially, if we did finish up with the needs assessment portion, the next step within the project would be for forwarding this over to Finance Committee for consideration on how things should be financed, including the architecture and engineering portion of the project, that there would likely be some expenses within 2026 if we were on the anticipated timeline.
I think am I wrong? I think we're at a point where we could refer it to finance, correct?
Yep, we could. I would just say if there's anything that we would want to finish up in terms of the needs assessment, it could either be finishing up with it or running concurrently along with sending this over to finance for review.
And just one question, it was brought up, the whole sustainability opportunity. Do we know what the fleet standard is and how to comply? Or do we delegate that to the engineer?
I mean, that would be part of the engineering assessment. It just would be something that we would want to incorporate when they're talking about not only the site plan, but also with the cost estimate.
Okay.
As well.
Because the interesting thing is we've talked about this before, it's not just the capital cost of the new building, but making sure that we can afford the operating cost of the building after it's up. And if that's, and it, if that kills two birds with one stone, where we have an environmentally better building and we're reducing the operating cost of the building, I think we heard today that we should be considering that. And I just want to make sure as we're working on the specifications, we think about that.
Yeah, I mean, if there is anything, it depends whether or not it's on its own about what would potentially be used as part of the building, or if we're comparing it to something else. Right.
All right, so do you need a motion? Do you need a motion to,
I would
refer it?
I would say make a motion to direct to Finance Committee for financing consideration.
So then
Just in terms of, so it's $3.25 million that was in the CIP. In terms of finalizing project costs, I mean, it was identified as long-term financing. But I mean, based on whether or not it's taking out a new.
There's a recommendation made 2 months ago that we use the broadband loan.
And I mean, if that's part of it, it can be forwarded over to the village for.
I mean,
taking
Nate, you said that recommendation wasn't made.
No,
It was, we've had it in our minute.
It was suggested, but I don't think we voted on it.
no, I
for
mean,
sure
like,
doing
there's,
that.
We did.
okay, there's a couple different things here. One, we don't have it on agenda. Two, there's closed session materials that need to be addressed before you. That goes through. There's a lot of moving parts to that. So,
I thought the discussion was, because I don't disagree with you, but I thought the discussion was, how can we do that? I don't want to say legally, but you know what I mean, how do we do it legally? I mean, how do we do it so that,
Well, there is state statute on reallocating a
There we go.
municipal
That
bond when
way.
it's intended
Yeah.
for one project. It gets canceled and you want to reallocate it. I think it can be done, but there
No,
are
I
a set of
disagree.
state
I
requirements.
think that there was discussion
Adam
in there,
and
but
Justin gave us 3 options. We picked one, we made a motion.
have finance? Or the board?
Finance.
that would have been in December.
Wow.
Yeah, that was not conveyed and I don't think that. There are other considerations, I think that. Not saying that that shouldn't happen, but there's more that's gotta get baked into it, in my opinion, but.
Denise, I know that Adam gave us the 3 options. I thought he left with the action to come back to the finance committee with specifics on what would have to happen and what the cost is associated to
There's no.
There
cost.
is cost. There is cost. You can't just reallocate this. State statutes require that we go through a process. We'll probably have to pay a financial advisor to help us with it.
There were costs associated, and I can't remember the
Guys,
terminology.
we're
Yeah.
not on an agenda item here at this point, so if we need to do this, let's get this rectified at finance, and if it doesn't need to go, finance needs to. If it doesn't need to go there, then it can go to the village board next.
It must have been October, we didn't meet in December. Unless it was at the board. If it was at finance. All right, so what,
Louis, one other quick question, that's kind of a tangent. Thinking about this large meeting room that will be available for some amount of time. And the historical societies offer, and the small footprint of Mill Road, would taking out the large meeting room be an option?
I don't know what their timeline is.
Well, we have this.
I don't disagree,
That's the
but
whole thing,
but-
but staff has talked
I know
about
what
in the
Denise is
past.
saying, she's.
Is the travel and not co-located.
Is the efficiency
Right,
of it.
and so
You're
if
not-
we were in an administration building that held the offices right now. Sarah, I venture to bet without me even asking, would have run back to an office to grab me the 2026 CIP.
It would all be
I wasn't
accessible.
lying.
Yes, having it be in one site would be preferable. I mean, there are plenty of other issues that are associated with the current building, but otherwise we have meetings here as well. I don't know if you want to open it up for Miles at all.
Louise?
Oh, I'm so sorry, Miles, I was looking for, yes, Miles.
My only thought there is to put in context with, that I talked to those, the historical society. They asked me my thoughts on their farm. I think what they're referring to is if you have a meeting that's like 150 people.
Yeah.
Then that would be an option. It's not for, I don't think what they're referencing, I think speak for them, but from the discussion I've had with them, they're not speaking like the routine meeting, more like Town of Gibraltar, if they have a meeting that's gonna draw 400 people for a vote, they do it in their fire station, or they do it at the auditorium or the high school gymnasium. That's what they're referring to, is this would be your site option if you needed something for one of the 2 or 3 times. Even if it is that many times a year, that meeting potentially, so you don't have to build 150 person meeting space for that 1 or 2 times a year. That, I believe that's what they were referring to.
Okay. Here we go. So I'm reading from, just took me a second, from the minutes of the October 13th Finance Committee. The committee agreed to recommend to the board that the broadband loan funds be reallocated to the administration project, building project.
Are you working on anything with the broadband? Louise?
I am,
Okay,
we are, the village is,
What?
because of extenuating circumstances, Denise, that we can't talk about right now. That was back in October. So did that go to, was that on a board agenda? It wasn't.
Why would-
was it
I didn't-
level?
Nate hasn't put it on.
Okay. Okay. All right, so back to this discussion, which is, do we take it to finance?
I mean, that would be the decision of the Parks Committee, if we need to re-cement what the financing options are, that would be my recommendation. Or at least review if it is finalizing the decision on what next steps would be determined, before staff reaches out to, financial advisors for taking action.
But has the budgeted number in the SIP changed?
No.
No,
Yeah, well,
yeah,
so the budgeted number has not, there could be differences, what we're talking about for this specific project versus what it was for the log request site. And ultimately, whether or not there'd be any determination to break out what the financing would be for the architecture and engineering versus the construction. Or if it'd be better to take it out in one lump sum with an anticipated cost. Just because we'll know more about what the anticipated cost estimate is going to be after we have the engineering and design planning.
but don't we need the engineering design, that effort to know the amount that they think the new site and et cetera will be?
That's what I'm saying here.
Okay.
Yeah,
But why, I don't understand why that's a referral to finance though, because we have a budgeted amount, there's some question about options for how that budget gets fulfilled.
mhm.
But it feels like the next step is going for RFP with the engineering, or, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, things can go in tandem. I would just say if we know what cash on hand that we're gonna have for paying the architecture and engineering firm.
I think that if I hear what you're saying, Jerry, like this has already been approved, the 3.25 is there. I think that we should review the RFP before it goes out. I think that's the next step. In my opinion, make sure that we get what we want over the RFP. I mean, if we don't need to get approval from finance on it, because whatever else we're talking about, that's kind of a back end thing relative to this.
Mhm.
You know, it's already, the rest of it's been approved. And if we're almost certainly gonna have to modify that. So then at that point, we then take that to finance, and that's what makes sense to me.
Yeah. Sure. No, yeah, we can definitely move forward with that and we can have it drafted for the next meeting, for the regularly planned meeting. We already have an RFP example for the other site, so be making modifications to it, and it would, I guess, as part of this discussion with making the recommendation, is there any direction on the specifics of the RFP? Is it based on lowest cost? Is it based on experience? Is it based off of what staff feels would be appropriate for what's being presented?
Then that's a conversation that comes up later.
Yep, I mean, it can be just seen when making the initial RFP, if there's any initial guidance, but it can definitely be a conversation for later.
All right, so you're gonna put together the RFP and bring it back to the committee.
Yep.
Okay. Do we need consensus or do we need a motion on that?
Just
Um,
direct staff.
Yep, if that's the direct staff from consensus.
Okay. All right, that was 5E. Now the discussion, page 30, I think this is page 31 in your packets. 5F, current administration building impact on the road construction project, which is the Triangle project.
Yes, so from the past meeting, we were still waiting on the appraisal report for the current administration building. Staff reached out and was able to received that on February 10th, so we're bringing it forward to this meeting here. And then based on the simple market fee value, it would be for $248,000. We'll estimate it for the fair market value for the current administration building. Ultimately, when discussing this, it will impact whether or not the recommendation is to demolish the current building or to maintain and retain the current administration building. Included in the staff report, I did include some additional considerations on the impact of the Triangle Road reconstruction project, the project timing and coordination, interim staff location in the if the building is demolished, the timeline for the new administration building, potential sale value versus demolition costs, and then the long-term community and operational benefits. And I can cover any of those other considerations in more details as well. But just as part of this, I did include the objective for the committee meeting would just be evaluating some of the different considerations regarding the Triangle project and the current administration building, and that the desired outcome would be to have a recommendation that would be forwarded over to the village board.
Right, to either for demolition or maintain it, which would be, I guess, sell it.
Yep.
So
So
everybody saw the appraisal?
Okay, I think I'm the only one who was not for demolishing at this point, and if it's just me, there's no point in taking a lot of time, so let me just say a few things, and then if we need to move on, let's just move on, we don't need to delve into it a lot. I look at this as a public asset. And demolishing it is going to destroy a 95-year-old, almost 100 years old. And I say this knowing full well that she's gonna hear about this is older than Marge. And I say that with a great deal of affection for Marge Gritzman. I understand that it is not in great shape. Where I really started thinking about this was I was walking down the street and I did contact Joel before I mentioned this today. Joel Browner was driving by and he said, when you guys move out of that building, what are you gonna do with it? I thought, well, I hadn't really thought about it. He's like, well, you know, there's a lot of different things that get put in there. There's a lot of interesting uses that could happen there. And I said, well, are you interested? He's like, yeah, I would be. I said, well, that's interesting, but I mean, obviously there's a lot of steps before that comes to be, but it started making me think about it. The point is that I'm not saying that we should do that, but he planted that seed about 1.5 years ago. I don't see a major benefit to the village economically long-term, and I know you're gonna say the grant calculations and all that, Louise, for a parking lot, parking space, don't generate revenue. A business generates revenue. Putting more cars back in that area is simply gonna drive more traffic back there. I understand there's limitations on it. I look at it as a historic building, we could take and potentially take that money, allocate it to the village hall, not take new taxpayer money, because it's still taxpayer money, it's a taxpayer asset. Allocate it towards that, put some restrictions on what they could do, say they gotta maintain the facade if we sell it. I think at least we go out there and try and sell it. And $248,000 isn't terribly far off. I had said $200,000 to $400,000. It's on the low end of that, but I think we should do that. I don't think that we should try and pick up a handful of additional parking spots in that area, but like I say, I know I'm the minority here, so I don't think we should waste that much time as a committee if I'm still in the minority there.
I think it was more than a handful.
It was 21.
That was-
I'm just giving you facts. I'm not, at this point,
It was a
I'm
difference
trying to,
between the
like,
two, it was not
either way.
21, it was.
my concern has always been we sell it and then they tear it down.
You'd have to put that restriction on it. If you don't do that, then that's kind of, I guess the one benefit is that we're not paying for the demolishing and we got the money out of it.
Well, another challenge is if we sell it and they try to use it for something, there's no way they can reasonably meet code for parking or setbacks or any of that. And to your point about driving more cars back there, a business puts more cars back there in a place that is going to have even less parking than it has today, and parking is already a big challenge for all of those neighbors, businesses.
And not just, and the people that live there are losing their parking spaces.
Right.
That is my concern. People that own homes.
Right.
Some of them will lose their parking spaces because they're parking on the road and we are putting in curb and gutter. And that is the number one driver for my opinion. On that we have to put in as much parking as possible for the people who live there.
That was what caused me to vote in favor. First of all, I don't think we had an option from the engineer at the time to keep the building up. We did have a conversation about allowing somebody to move it. But like Denise, I was very concerned about, we had memos or emails from people who were gonna lose the only parking they had for their homes, which was street-related parking. At least that's how it was described at the time, and I was concerned that that wouldn't be fair to them. So that's why I voted in favor of taking it down, in favor of letting people maintain parking that they had, let alone get a few more spots.
So. There's that. You're like damned if you do and damned if you don't. But I
spoke my
think
piece
people,
and-
I do think that some people think that maybe it's gonna be a parking lot.
It's
not.
effectively, if you're putting in 21 spaces, trading a building for parking. It's not a parking lot exactly, but you're trading a building for parking, and that's. The one thing I will credit everybody on this committee is they're aware of what that is. They're making that choice actively, and that's
Well, let me ask
a
another,
positive thing.
but there's another thing
True.
too. So this is, this parcel of land is 0.24 acres. 0.24 acres. And, so. When, if we were to take it down, if they were to take the building down. You know, we don't lose that much of that 0.24 acres, I don't think.
Well, does the 0.24 acres also includes the parcel across the street, correct?
Yep.
So where the admin building is, it's
Mhm.
even that much smaller because
It's
the
just,
road divides the parcel.
it's just a
Oh,
small,
I forgot about
very
that.
I mean, it's
small
not
area.
large, but it is a certain amount of square footage.
In the back,
Well, it is pretty decent. I mean, you can see it on
Yeah.
the GIS map.
yeah, in the back basement area, it's only a small area outside of that, that it actually, that's where the lot lines are for the building.
Well, in the engineering drawings for the triangle that included the demolishing of the building, there was some green space, it retained the stone retaining walls and put a sidewalk through there, so there was
Right.
easier pedestrian accessibility going through that.
But there's no room for a park or anything, right?
Well, it would be a small amount of green space.
Yeah. Or
I mean, it doesn't
a
mean you
tree.
couldn't throw up some benches up there.
Certainly do some picnic tables.
There's also the opportunity across the street, if that isn't something that is.
Is
an
this
attempt
across
to sell.
Bluff side?
No,
Oh,
it's
it's
on
across
Maple.
Maple. Oh. it's
There's
over
a
there.
very small,
Down in the valley.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a cliff view, that's inaccessible.
next to.
so if
Ruth's.
that was demolished, there would also be an opportunity to see if they're. It either a sale or absorbed with any of the property owners, or used for some purpose like a bench or small passive recreation.
You could throw it in and put parking there too. Get a handful more spots. I mean, like, if you're trying to do that, it's not I'm not even being sarcastic on
Yeah,
that.
I think that one's even just like a small sliver, but
It's a third the size.
Well, I think the grading though, like that is a steep
Sure,
cliff.
it drops.
And right now, the way it's zoned, just about anything could go in there, right? B2.
D2 is historic.
Wouldn't say it's.
It's a
anything
historic
going-
overlay, right?
With setbacks, the size and the road and everything, I don't think you can fit hardly anything building wise there.
And not,
Okay, I'm gonna just,
and not
because
housing.
I'm leaving and I usually take the heat anyway, I make a motion that we demolish it and move forward with engineering.
You can take a
Or
photo.
give it away or something, but that we're not going to keep it. I will leave it that open.
Okay, so we'll do a roll call vote, so nobody chickens out.
No.
Okay.
Shockingly,
It's more for me.
Bell,
I don't know if
no.
It's gonna be yelled at, but go ahead, Nate. Yay or nay?
Bell, no.
Bell, no.
RNCA,
House and yay.
Glasswoods, yay.
Yes, yay.
Or no.
Okay, this is that motion carried. Not going to be full for about a year. All right,
Thank you for getting it done quickly.
but why couldn't we, We could ask Paula if she can move it. Can she
Please.
move it?
Please.
I'm serious. Oh,
We
never
can
mind, I know it's
advertise it,
never mind.
let's not talk about any specific people.
Okay, all right. Great. Okay. That wasn't fun. All right, up next. Okay, wait, what's the next step? How do we let Robert E. Lee know? And then how does this impact the
Well,
process?
I think that's
Since
the-
we are at a standstill with the
So
project.
this is a recommendation to the village board. So
Oh,
this
sorry,
will
to
be-
recommend,
be
okay.
brought over to the village board to make final determination, and if it is approved, then staff would communicate with REL regarding which option to move forward with, and then come back with an updated project timeline.
Okay.
So. This has happened multiple times before. I'm gonna ask the question just so I totally understand. So we are recommending 4-1 to the board that we don't want to keep it. Somebody else wants it. That's cool.
Right.
Love that repurposing. If the board says, no, we want to keep it. So in all actuality, Robert E. Lee can't be notified about anything until it hits the board agenda
Right.
and the board votes.
Because last time it was recommended 3-2 to the board and it came back.
Right.
So, yes, a final determination cannot be made on which concept is there till a decision is made. And then whether or not, I guess, retained. Yeah, I mean, retained or in any which way, I guess it's depends whether or not it's there or not, would depend on their concept. So, if we keep it, or it's sold to somebody else, or it's moved, there would need to be a consideration for the concept. Otherwise, if it is demolished, that ultimately leads to the other concept.
So next board meeting, that'll be,
Next board meeting,
Towards the end
it
of
will
March.
be. Yep, so I mean, that can
and
be,
then depending on the outcome there, it either goes to Robert E. Lee to proceed forward or something else.
I
You don't
mean,
need to define the something else.
yeah, I mean, it depends on what is decided. If it's just very clear cut, if we're looking at the binary, it's option 1 or option 2. And they know if there's somewhere in the middle that might mean additional clarification or additional discussion with that. So,
Okay, next item is 5G, potential walking tour, discuss time and date. Last year we did it on June 16th. We were gonna do one in the fall and we kept having to put it off and we didn't do it. So, we could recommend that we do it again in May or June of this year. When it starts getting to a point where we can actually do it. Last year, the walking tour included the gazebo and counter and benches, binocular viewers, historic signage, landscaping, marina restroom sign, little library, trees, post office light, asphalt, and the e-bike shed. A walking tour is to be scheduled for future where the sports complex and Pebble Beach.
Well, I think with Eric's report, well, first of all, on page 114, it says the Lundquist site. I think we need to correct that to the Lagerquist for the record.
I missed that, sorry.
We have a lot of Lagerquists, we have a lot of Lundquists. Let's make sure we're all on the same page. In Eric's report about, the structures on that property.
Well, are we talking about the walking tour, or are we on to the committee, to the
No.
report now?
The walking tour, I
Okay.
think that should be on.
A walking
the
tour
plan,
locations.
Okay.
Because of what he had pointed out.
You think Lagerquist should be at the top of the list, is that what you're saying? Sorry.
Well, at least on it.
Yeah, on it, sure,
Yeah.
okay, yep.
I also think that the walking tour needs to be informational only. When we walked around, made motions, I think that we got into weeds that we shouldn't get into. And it was extremely, extremely difficult for staff to herd the cats on that to figure out what was going on. So I think that if we're going to do this, we need to do it informationally only and not try and have any product come out of that meeting directly. We can refer to the next meeting. I also don't think we should actually schedule until we have a new committee form, probably try and get it done in May. But let's not confirm the date until we actually have, because there will be changes to the committee.
Oh,
between now and
okay.
May. We
So
can put a
tentative-
placeholder date on it, then there
Yeah.
are ideas for it.
Okay.
And I did see Sarah shake her head a little bit because I was.
Yeah.
It was a challenge.
So what I would say is that just in terms of an outline for a schedule, if there was some top priorities and then some general timeframes that this was looking to be scheduled, and then we could, have more of a staff action, or as we get closer, follow up regarding the specific dates.
Well, last year was on a Monday. But I don't know, maybe we could have, maybe we scheduled it instead of a regular meeting. I don't think we did though. So if it was in May and it was a Monday, it would be like May 11th
Well,
or 18th.
I
or
think
something.
we just said we don't wanna schedule it today.
No, I know, but a placeholder, sorry.
Well, I wouldn't even say just a placeholder, is that May, Lager West site,
Okay.
we're talking sometime in, whether if we're having only potentially 2 or 3, sometime in September, here's what we want to do for this one. And we have staff will put placeholders on there for a value, and it can be discussed the meeting prior.
Okay.
Since we have been doing a good job of keeping the meetings a little shorter, doing it after a meeting while there's still plenty of light, I think would be okay from my view.
Yeah,
Let's put a time on it then to say we're gonna be done at this meeting at this time and then we're gonna leave.
I think that's fair.
Doing our best. Okay, so May and then possibly, what'd you say, October, it'd have to be after Fall Fest. but-
and again, not to say that's the specific things, just
Okay.
saying, month that you're looking to do it, what you're looking to.
Okay, and so for sure on the list would be Lager Quest. We can't ignore Pebble Beach, and that was kind of important.
And I think always going through Gateway Park and that area
Yeah.
is important, because that's the
Well, it gets neglected a little bit.
biggest park of the.
Yeah. Okay. Any more discussion on that?
I'm good with that.
Okay, next up, 5H, facility rental fees.
All right, so this is a follow-up into the previous meeting where there was a decision to update the policies to allow nonprofits to essentially rent a facility annually at the daily rate fee. So as part of that, it was the determination of the Parks Committee to have that action and to come back with an updated policy. So what I did is I just put together just a very general outline of what a policy would look like for it, which essentially includes the requirements that any nonprofit organization in a presence in Door County would provide documentation of either an IRS letter, a state certification of exempt status, or the most recent return of the income tax form. Just something that would show that they're a nonprofit and also based out of Door County to have an address. And that staff would go through a verification process to meet that criteria. And then with any policy, it is more than likely appropriate to have some type of appeal process in place for it. So if they don't feel as though that it was met, that there would be an opportunity for the Park Property and Streets Committee to have an appeal.
Something that happened last year. That we didn't come up, I was thinking about it, we had a group that said, oh, we're doing this event on behalf of a nonprofit. I think that we should explicitly state that it can't be on behalf, that it's actually got to be the nonprofit, because that was certainly, I think that was abused.
Yeah, that was a bit of a misnomer.
Yeah, so I think that's just, I don't know that we can codify that, but I think that you understanding our intent, Ben, is probably is enough.
Yeah, no, in terms of the use, it would be some language that would be on the form and in the policy that they need to be the ones that are actually utilizing the facility.
There's something else that's come up. So the Philharmonic Orchestra has played at the, on the pavilion stage for 4 or 5 years now. And, so, and for the first time, under this policy, they would, and they only play once. They request once, they play once.
Yep.
So under this policy, they would pay $2,500 to play, which is prohibitive. They wouldn't be able to play. So how do we work with organizations? I mean, it's so rare. You know, between Ellie and I, in the, 10 years or so that we've been managing the pavilion stage, typically, we pay people to play. So what do we do?
Yes.
Know that we ever, I don't remember the conversation. And I did not go back and look through all the minutes where we said it was gonna cost $2,500 for the pavilion.
We said,
The land,
I don't think we were specific about the pavilion. You're right. I don't see it
and
in the
so I
language.
think that is a mistake that was made. I think it was about the rental,
Yeah, it is $2,500. Yeah,
of
for
the
the park.
green space.
Yeah, for the park.
But it had nothing to do with the pavilion.
But it's not about what we meant, it's about what we said, unfortunately.
I
So
know,
we can
so
correct
I'm
that.
saying that we need to readdress that because I also have that on my list of the symphonic band.
So I did include under the other considerations portion, talking about this as an item for if it's not a reoccurring event, whether or not there should be any considerations for the policy for any price reductions. It was not initially discussed at the past meeting, so I didn't update it as part of the policy, but I did want to include it
Yeah.
as a consideration if that's something that would be considered, but again, from an administration perspective, it could almost be a trade-off. If you get it once, you get a reduced price, or you get the annual, and you can use it more than once.
But what is the symphonic band doing right now? I mean, I believe that's already been resolved, hasn't it?
No, we didn't.
So
resolve it.
as part of it,
Can't SBA, they do it under the SBA umbrella,
Well-
and then,
I think there's issues with, not issues. There needs to be a discussion with the SBA board as it relates to that.
So I will say, they've never done it under our umbrella before. It's always just been through the village.
Right, they call Heidi, is it available? We said yes, they played. It
So
was really simple.
we
But I-
just helped market and like added them to our marketing schedule, so. There's some concerns that like our board wanted to discuss what that looks like in terms of like us having to add to our insurance policy. And things like that, so that our board doesn't meet for another few weeks.
But there would still be no problem, no matter what we decide to do, they would still be added to the schedule. We did it because we wanted more people to know about it, more people to attend, and because it's important. They're local residents and we wanted to make that happen.
I think we need to readdress the pavilion itself.
that was gonna be my next point, is if it's too high for everybody or just for like these specific things. So I mean, ultimately, when we're talking about it, it can be addressed in the policy if it's a single-use nonprofit, that could be addressed as part of it. But if it's too high for everybody, it would be as part of that a recommendation for the village board.
But to be honest, I think they're the only ones that have ever asked. There was one other instance, but other than that, they're the only ones that have ever really asked, except that we did once upon a time have an aerobic class on the pavilion stage, and they were never charged. They just did an aerobic class. It was fun. People left, and that was that.
I think we need to remember what that event was last summer and some of.
I understand.
That's
what we
the
need-
prism I'm looking at
I
it
get
through.
it. Yeah.
I'm thinking that maybe we let SBA figure out what they wanna do with it. Because they're gonna ultimately,
What they wanna
if they're a
do.
community-based organization, which I think I would say the Harmonic is, SBA is likely gonna let them go, and if they end up being the arbiter of that, great. If they're going on the literature anyway, that's a real easy thing to say, well, that's what SBA is doing. Let's give them a chance before we try and reinvent the wheel on it. Cause I'm just concerned about if you make it $500 or let's say make it $100 on there for somebody to rent that stage. Who do you open that up to?
We
What
can open the
other?
floodgates there, but let me play devil's advocate then. So now, you also not open the floodgates, I hate that, but people would likely then get in touch with the SBAA and say, if you're suggesting maybe that they manage the, performances at the pavilion, is that what?
And for the number of performances is happening, if they've already, this one is a little bit. It's because they've already been part of the literature.
Yeah, they've been paying for 4 or 5 seasons.
So
Yeah.
I believe folks over at SBA
Yes.
wanted to
Elliot.
clarify that.
Sorry.
Are just kind of be or not careful, but I know that like even, like we all know, I guess, what performance we're talking about.
Yeah.
Last year, but it was even thrown, like SBAA was brought up by we know, why doesn't SBAA just take that performance on? So I know like we do, and again, we're not concerned about the symphonic band by any means. But we also, as the SBA, need to make sure that, like, we're probably, if this is a route that it seems like we're wanting to take, SBA is gonna also need to have to make a policy on what types of groups or organizations that we're willing to take on and work with.
Yeah,
as
you,
well.
I mean, you do in a limited way in terms of language and things
Yeah.
like that,
So,
but not very.
I just want to be clear, but the answer isn't always, like, the SBAA can just take care of.
But
That's
so,
why I still think we need
Yeah,
a
like-
pavilion conversation.
Yeah, you're right, we do.
okay,
Yes, we do.
but I think we need to
But-
also give you a chance to come up, and maybe you come back and say, nope, we can't do that. Let's give SBA a chance to see where that lines up, to see how much we have to take on. Because I understand it can't all be SBA, but SBA gets access to that pavilion. So there's some responsibility that comes with that.
Well, but they also plan a day that we don't normally have concerts.
Sure.
So if this isn't,
They're all under, it's all under contract. You can have
Yeah.
it for these days in July, August, and September for movies and for concerts, and that's it. They don't own the pavilion outside of
Yeah.
those days. It's a village entity, so the village needs a policy, yeah. For sure.
happy to help where we can, but
Yeah.
I don't wanna always,
But so what do we do with the symphonic orchestra in the meantime? It just,
So I mean, that's the consideration here on the village side, is that we can wait and hear back if that's something that is feasible for SBAA. Not saying that it is, but in terms of the other more village oriented alternatives, it's whether or not there would be a consideration for price reductions for one-time use, or to talk about it from a holistic perspective for everybody and to recommend.
but if we, here's my suggestion, sorry.
Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
But we do what we always do. This hasn't been adopted yet. If we approve the symphonic band or we adopt this,
Yeah.
this moves forward. We approve them now. Staff approves them now, because this has not been adopted.
Ah, okay. Okay, but then what I was gonna say was, to Denise's point, that $2,500 is for the park. Not the pavilion stage. It might include it, it doesn't even say it includes the
Right.
pavilion stage. So then you have a separate policy for the pavilion stage that doesn't include the park. You can't have like a family reunion with your own band and all that stuff for $2,500, you know what I mean? That makes sense. Okay,
So
so,
I think Woodcrest paid to have our picnic there last year.
yeah, you would have,
$100.
okay,
So I think we're talking a more comprehensive, we aren't a nonprofit, but we aren't a profit either. We're a condo association.
Mm.
So I think there are a lot of pieces to this puzzle.
uh-huh. Okay, so I would then say that. I mean, can we just, this hasn't been adopted yet, and we can, they're sort of grandfathered in, we can allow the symphonic orchestra to. Per their previous arrangement with the village, to play this summer on the, I can't remember, I don't know what the date is, but on the pavilion stage.
That work then?
Yeah, I mean, as long as there's clear direction, I just would hate for something to be adopted and then the first action would be to fly in the face of what's adopted, I guess.
We're not
But
worried about that.
what?
We're not gonna be worried about
Okay, well, if that's the direction, it can be implemented if, from the park committee.
I think for this agenda item with the slight caveats Nate mentioned, I think you captured what we talked about last meeting in this document, and I don't have any concerns with adopting it otherwise.
But we have to have, still has to come back with the pavilion con.
Yeah, so the next, we create the next agenda item would be for a separate, a
I
separate.
mean,
Yeah, to make it clear the differentiation between pavilion and park.
Yeah, because they are really very different. Okay. So. Are we? Was that a motion for, the symphonic thing? Because it wasn't really an agenda item, was it?
I mean, for right now, it's more of staff direction. I think for
Okay.
this one, it would be actually, from what I'm understanding, is that it would be tabled. As part of this,
Postponed.
right, or postponed. That this would be brought up. Otherwise, it can be a two-part motion of where it's the direction and that to adopt this or adopt it at a specific date. I'm not quite clear about the final intention. I know that we want to adopt this at some point and
So
you
let's
want,
postpone it. We'll bring it back and then we'll talk about the stage at the same time.
okay.
Everybody okay with that? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Beautiful.
I'm sorry, we had a hand. I don't know if we're able to call.
Yeah, yeah.
I just curiosity what got me on the website for the form to rent the pavilion and the park right now, it does say $2,500. So I don't know if that
It
means.
says
anything.
pavilion too.
Yeah, so I don't know if that means it was officially adopted or.
And I believe-
I get just
so
wanted to point it
the
out.
final place would be for the fee schedule of where it is.
Which would mean that the website has to be.
Well,
Like the form that someone would turn in.
yeah, so I mean, that's two different things in terms of what it is. I mean, it should align. I'm assuming that the last time that it was updated, that it was that the form was updated,
Yeah.
but the fee schedule that would be adopted annually was listed, and that would be the most touched upon policy. I mean, of saying what the rates are for that.
Right, but if right now we haven't adopted the. Right?
Well, we're
We
talking.
might have adopted the fee schedule,
We did
That's-
adopt a fee schedule.
Yes, I was gonna say, the fee schedule is
but
typically
the fee
adopted,
schedule was wrong because Parks never made a recommendation that the pavilion was $2,500.
but the village board ultimately adopted it.
But I think what Denise is saying is, they adopted it, we adopted it for, Waterfront Park.
Yes.
But not separately for the pavilion. It was
Correct.
assumed that the pavilion was part of it.
It
Gotcha.
was for Waterfront Park.
I mean, I
Gotcha.
know it's kind of nuanced.
I'm looking
but
at it here
it's
and I
sort of-
understand what you're saying. It doesn't say
It's
pavilion.
not specific.
Yeah,
Okay,
it doesn't say pavilion. It just says waterfront
Yeah.
park, which technically in
Right.
terms of reservable areas, it's different.
It's the
Perfect.
land, it's where people put tents up.
Perfect.
okay. Okay, we are now moving on. Ken, did you have a question?
No. Just waiting for the end.
Aren't we all?
Aren't we all, Ken? The end of what? Don't answer that. Okay, up next is, folks, 6, staff report, and let's do that.
Yes, I'm not quite sure. I know Eric had to go pick up his kiddos or be at the bus stop for it, but his report is included here. Just some of the highlights is just based on staff resources. There's been a lot of staff resources dedicated for Christmas decoration removal. They've been doing a lot in terms of the park maintenance facility move-in. I believe that today was one of the last days that they were in there and getting most of the stuff out, and that they're putting up current storage shelves, workstation, and mini mezzanine at the new proposed location. He also did provide some updates for the picnic table construction costs here, what were allocated, as well as the memorial bench construction costs and the bench frame color options that was a committee request as well. And again, just kind of following up on some of the items that were discussed, there's also the village hall heating costs for 2025. All that information for the total heating costs has been identified, and what the labor and electrical use that was associated with it. We did have the cold storage project representative from TK Builders provide some additional information for an estimate. Eric's been working with him in the past on this. For the historical signage, he's been working on getting cost estimates for that, and that we're going to be looking at potentially proposing this in the future for the historical signage project. For the gazebo stone counters and bench update, there were a few different contractors that were contacted as part of it. Only one estimate's been received so far, And that, he's hoping to have the two other estimates for comparison by the end of March. And then just as a follow-up on one of the other committee reports last time as well, there was also the headache rack costs, that were identified, as part of the staff report for the safety concerns. All of that has been identified for line item costs and where it was charged to. And then just the other part of it is I just included the email that Eric sent me, but there's just for the Logger Quest site, I asked that he would put together just some general information about what Eric's intention was for the maintenance of the Logger Quest site. Overall, he was looking at probably doing one structural or one facility repair per season. But he identified all that as part of the email looking forward, but it would be an excellent opportunity to identify some of those needs or just generally take a look at it or refresher as part of the walking tour within 2026 for that site. And then just for my side of things for the committee report updates is I did include some proposed language for the pickleball signage update, which reflects the policy that was adopted for the official pickleball club's use of reservable times and the available first come, first served basis, and then referring to additional information at the village website under reservations.
I have a question about that. Is everybody gonna know what an official pickleball club is?
I mean, it refers to it on there, or if we just say pickleball clubs. I mean, I think if you know, you know, but I think the main thing
Okay.
is that.
Well, there's info on the website, right?
Yep, there's info on the website. So really, it's just meant to be, here's some additional information. It's non-reservable, available first come, first served, but only for the pickleball clubs when they have the reservable times.
Okay.
And that's the main information that's being communicated and that they can look it up. At that. And then just for the reflexive sign update, just wanted to communicate, I did speak with Jeb from Door County Emergency Management, and it was determined that the information that was identified previously in the news article listed wasn't exactly accurate, as it turns out that Door County Emergency Management is coordinating the effort for replacing any of the fire sign rollout, but they haven't identified any signs that they're going to be providing to the village, and that ultimately they're going to be a resource of providing vendors to the village sometime within the summer for those updates if we choose to do so. And then just lastly here, just wanted to mention that the village of Sister Bay is in the uniform address system from the county, which is essentially why this project is coming about, and that it would be the responsibility of the village to make sure that any of the signs align with what is in the uniform address system.
But most of that signage isn't residential, right?
No,
That has
so-
to do with roads.
When we're talking like a town and some of the different signage that's associated with it, it's much different from what we're talking about with the village. And ultimately, there's very nominal signs that would need to be replaced, but they're not there to impose anything, and that they're there as a resource and a partner within the project.
Okay.
And lastly here, just for future updates and agenda items, just wanted to list some of the different things that are currently on the docket to be scheduled, which includes the safety procedures and policies, the Heck Family Memorial Bench and volunteer days. And then for the Memorial Bench program, status of the e-bike rental request, resident drop-off site for branches, research on Parks District for regional facility collaboration, Flower Pot Angels, Mill Road landscaping plan, tree plantings for Marina Fest, and then the bus grant.
In the future, can we do what we usually do and not reread everything, and if anybody just has questions?
Sure. Yeah.
Say, Eric wanted to texted me here and he just needs an answer here. He's asking if the committee would like the stamped concrete for the historical sign.
That's what I was wondering about.
This item in his staff report. And he intends to come back via Zoom.
And I think that was offered at no cost, so I have no concern.
Okay.
Are we okay with the flagstone stamp?
Absolutely.
Okay. I don't know, did he hear us?
Not yet. He's
Okay.
not back up.
So can you just text him just to, I'm
Oh, no.
assuming he'll be back on before we leave?
Oh, here he is.
He's on now.
He's just joining.
Eric, can you hear us okay?
Oh, here we go.
Blink twice.
Eric, can you hear us?
Well, I think absent Eric, we answered his question.
Okay.
Yeah, it can be.
Just let him know it's approved. Okay, and we do have, the e-bike folks will be back, will be at make the request, and that'll be on the agenda for next month. I offered to talk to Liz Hecht about, the suggestion for a bench and the volunteer days, just to make sure that she's okay with it, if everybody's all right with that.
That's fine. I just,
Okay.
didn't want to rush anything.
Right, yeah, that's
Right.
kind of,
Give
okay.
some time.
Gotcha. The drop off sites for branches and stuff will probably be later. I mean, I'm not gonna go through the list to Denise's point. The Mill Road landscaping plan, I mean, that plan, not the Mill Road
So
landscaping. that
Eric
plan, I
has a
beg your
lot of that
pardon.
information. It was more so just for the
Yeah,
timing
but
of
we
this
needed to
meeting.
have something much more specific about planting, for the trees, close to the marina. That will be at the next meeting, so it's very specific and with Ivan, hopefully. And then, the landscaping plan, we already discussed what kind of plants need to be there, but also how we're gonna get them watered, because they're just gonna die again. So we gotta make sure that we can water whatever we're gonna put in there.
So I have a couple of other things to put on, a future, agenda. And I mentioned it, I think after our board meeting to Louise, you and Ben, the dog park moving to the Laughing site.
When
And
is-
planning
Well, I
for
would-
that?
I would just say, I mean, that it can be a discussion, but I would say that that probably is something that would follow the acceptance of the recommendation for the facility plan. To know,
But, right, but it has to do with tree planting
Planting
more
tree.
so than anything.
okay,
That,
'Cause this is
because
for-
Eric wrote in there, he did some around the perimeter of the house and whatever. But we had talked about, and we don't we may not have that kind of timeline of 10 years anymore, or 8 years, or whatever we were once thinking. On letting those trees grow for a while, be shaded, taller, bigger, so that's what that's about.
okay.
And then you already said, that the DNR encumbrance will be on next month's agenda.
Yep, so just an update on that is that what was requested at the time in either November or December.
By who?
I believe the former administrator is that it was for as if the lot was intended to be sold, so not as if it was for the DNR grant. And based on communications with the appraisal company and for the DNR, that was not what was needed. And that essentially, it sounds like we can meet the DNR in a good middle ground where we don't have to completely redo the entire appraisal. We'll be able to provide a one-page summary with a value on it.
Okay, so the appraisal was done as if we were going to sell it,
Yes,
and we needed it.
we needed it to be as if it was going to be used for the DNR encumbrance purposes. So as if it was going to be utilized for the recreational purpose. And that,
And how is that different?
well, first off, it's the larger area. So one thing is that it includes more than what it needs to be. Second off, it's also about the use. So it wouldn't necessarily have the parking lot and all the features that would be associated with it. They gave a better description, or they clarified it as part of it. And that we're in coordination with the appraisal company about getting that revised, but
So does that mean the number for Knowles Nelson purposes may be a lot smaller?
it very well could be, yes. Is that this was a larger area for a different purpose, and that this, once revised, it's anticipated to be a smaller number.
I'm still really hopeful it'll be somewhere less than 280, so then we can move the encumbrance to the place where the administration building is, and then we kill two birds with one stone.
The first action is to identify the value, and
Yeah.
yes, it would be for identifying what the proposed sites would be for it. But, so
I,
essentially,
I'm still not understanding.
so I'm
So it sounds
trying,
like, Ben, they appraised the whole lot as if it was commercial purpose, et cetera, when they were supposed to do the Knowles Nelson piece for their targeted.
so
But it is the whole piece.
we can, I don't want to say anything, disparaging, and I think we can talk offline about
All
it.
right, then we'll talk when we adjourn here. And the other thing I had on my list was the symphonic band in the pavilion, which we've already addressed, so.
A future agenda item, I'd like to see Frontier come back and tell us their current progress on their connecting the village plans.
Okay.
Cause they had some pretty lofty talk about in the fall. And it'd be interesting to hear now that it's
Sure.
the spring, their progress.
Okay.
They hooked me up a day after they put the line in front of my house.
I have, we're not, well, my neighborhood isn't hooked up yet, but I have reached out on, not a real regular basis, but a little bit with Jess,
I mean, you don't need to give the update here, we can wait.
I know.
And,
So part of this as well, just, you know, concurrently, Jess is intending on providing an update generally on broadband to the village board in April. And that,
Oh, okay.
there's also, in terms of a summary, whenever there is new improvements, they do send it over to Luis and I as part of it for contacts as well, what the improvements are generally, but that's private, and which is what we're talking about, but just saying that that's, you know, we do get updates in some capacity from staff perspective, so.
All right, where's my agenda? Here it is. Ken, your dream has come true. So we've discussed matters to be placed on a future agenda, I think. And our next regular meeting is April 6th, 2026 at 1 p.m. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Beautiful. Thank you for your patience and attendance.